Yes, it is. I need to know what
Framework
you're...
is ideological. You're asking me for pragmatic ways of disassembling.
That's not what Mel is saying at all. Oh my god. Dude, Vaush is so fucking mad in this conversation. He's just fucking going full steam ahead. Oh no. Wacky debaters.
You've never talked to me. You have never...
All right, muted. Anyway,
Oh my
I think that
god.
you came from them.
Vaush is correct here.
Your ideas are harmful. You share them through communication.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
See? Does that work?
What is even happening right now?
I mean, I just muted you. I didn't hear anything that you said. You've been doing it to me.
Gotcha. Ready to get into it?
Well, yeah. Do you want me to like do an intro? Do you want to introduce? I don't know how you do your streams.
Say who you are, and then I want to show the godforsaken Twitter thread that we were arguing over, and then we can discuss it bit by bit.
I mean, all right, sure. I mean, I kind of was hoping we were just gonna bring up the topics from the Twitter thread. I don't really want to go through like each individual tweet and like go through everyone's words, because I think like we're both like hyperbolic and spicy weirdos on the internet. So
my main criticism is that you're stupid on Twitter and I'm not. So I think it'd be very prescient of us to actually go through the stupid shit that you said, rather than letting you to run it back and present some backpedaled version of what you said.
Why would I do that? I'm coming here
coming in
with good
hot.
faith, so I mean, I don't know why you
we'll let the
Oh my
change
God.
decide. Look, backpedaling bad,
really-
okay?
I'm not backpedaling though. Like, you're accusing me of something and we haven't even started.
Before we even talk, I'm gonna play the video clip that spawned all this, just 23 seconds really quick, so everybody has full
God,
context.
dude, these
Oh, hell yeah, let's
monsters.
go.
Look, I
You're
get
fine.
overconsumption's a problem, but whether you like it or not, I mean, I want my iPhones. It's not... I'm not on board for socialism if it means cutting standard of living to like a third of what it currently is. Oh boy.
Can you bring up the volume
What's
of
an
the
acceptable
video?
amount of living standard down? We shouldn't have to. What is the point of socialism if people's standard of living gets cut down? So that was the clip, and you're familiar, so you probably know what I just showed. And then you say, I cannot take white men who yell about socialism means everyone still gets to keep the same standard of living or it isn't socialism seriously. What about black people or people in the global south who the West profits from? The standard of living is a capitalist concept. Do you want to elaborate on that in any way?
I mean, I just want you to ask me like how you feel about like degrowth and how you feel about what I said. Like, I mean, I'm not going to defend anything that I said on Twitter because it's Twitter. So like,
Oh, then
I'm
I'll
coming
keep
here
attacking
for
what
you to
said
ask
on
me.
Twitter. So first of
just
all,
like to-
the white men thing is pretty weird. I understand broader, like generalized criticisms, but I don't know what that has to do with my argument here.
Well, I mean, I'm a person of color, so if I say the word white, I think I'm allowed to, right? Like, who cares?
didn't
Like,
say
that's
you're
just silly.
How did we get a swing and a miss in both directions here? Mel saying the white men thing is actually super valid, but not for the reason she just gave. Wait, what the fuck? Bringing up the white thing here might be valid because you could argue that a Western standard of living is mainly Eurocentric and it's based on the subjugation, arguably, of persons of color. That's like one way that you could say, like, yeah, that's why I criticize white men when I say Western. When people talk about a Western standard of living, that's mainly like an illusion created by white Eurocentric people that are taking advantage or profiting off of third world countries that are generally persons of color. That would be like an okay response. But for Mel to just go, well, I'm a person of color, so I can just say white. Like, wait, that's not the right response. That was equally stupid. Why would you counter with that? Jesus.
I didn't say you're not
That's
allowed
legit.
to, but it's pretty weird.
Why do you think it's weird?
I think it's a little weird
Why does it
for me to
upset
make
you?
an argument and for people to dismiss it by implying that my whiteness has something to do with the non-validity of that argument.
Okay, so let me push back on this first 1 second, and then I would like to get back on the subject, but I do want to say this. So when we're talking about people of color, when we're talking about marginalized folks, when we're talking about anybody who is not living in the imperial core, when we're not talking about when we look at how capitalism and imperialism has impacted the rest of the world for the last 400 years, no one, when I say that this is a white person talking, it's not saying that like Vaush is white, don't listen to him because he's white. It's that generally like whiteness carries a perspective that is, it outweighs any other kind of marginalization. It outweighs all kinds of other factors in the discussion that you're having. So if you're
it's
talking
not
about
you dismissing it because I'm white, but it is.
God, what a dog shit answer. Oh my God. She's close, but just, ugh. Okay.
No, because your whiteness is heavier than any other marginalization that you have, and that's just a fact.
What does
If we're
that have to
talking
do with
about,
the argument that I made? Why not critique the argument? Why does it
I mean,
have
I
to be
can
my
I can
race?
totally critique the argument, but like that's just the hyperbolic statement that I'm saying. So you wanted to know why I said it. I'm giving you the
wait.
I'm giving you the reason why I said it and what it means.
That's
It's
not what
like
hyperbolic means. Hyperbolic doesn't mean calling a person white in a way that implies that that's in some way impugning my ability to make a coherent argument.
do we
Also,
want to
this
go
is
over the
liberal
definition
identity
of
politics.
hyperbolic? That's not identity politics. That's intersection. Like you have to be intersectional when we're talking about
the idea that my argument is less valid, or that its validity is in some way. Hold on. Or that the validity of that argument is in some way determined by my race.
It's not about being. It's not about being invalid.
No, wait. You just said that my whiteness weighs on my perspective more than any other marginalization, and you did that so because that influences my perspective. So what you're saying is my race, in some way, shape, or form, influences the validity, or at least the thought process behind my takes.
No.
Now,
I'm not saying it's because you are white that influences that is how your perspective is going to come across to like people of color. And so
I think people of color are perfectly capable of grappling with my arguments without impugning me for being white.
There's already a bias there. That's all I'm trying to point out.
There's always a bias to everyone, but this is what lets people like Candace Owens get away with dismissing arguments because they're
Jesus.
non-white. This is the definition
Oh
of
my
liberal
God.
identity politics.
We're just
No, it's not.
We're just going into all the debate tactics. Oh my God.
It's not, though.
Wait, Mel. And you take validity away from groups, or arguments made from groups that are privileged. This is
Okay, so these two people fucking hate each other. To be fair, I fucking hate the ChaosIsMel person too. But damn, we're just getting right into it, I guess, here, huh?
in addition to being a bad way of determining which arguments are valid, is also
Okay,
incredibly
so
effective for
like
conservatives.
I don't know why you. Okay, can we like talk about degrowth, please? Like I don't know why you're fixated on this race thing because I don't care. I wanted to talk to you about degrowth the entire time. Like,
Oh, don't
this is
worry.
why
We
I
only
came
have
here.
about a dozen more tweets to get through, and then we can talk about the abstract ideas in their totality. I'm not
I
going
would
to
just
give
like
my...
to
Wait,
talk
hold
about-
on. I don't want to give my audience the impression that you act in good faith. I have plenty of evidence that you don't.
So why would you even bring me on here if you're not even going to just give me the fair and balanced like TM, like just I say my arguments, you say yours, and we kind of see where we meet and you know not meet.
So
like,
let me ask you: are you
you're
saying
going-
that your
you're kind
arguments
of-
on Twitter are so bad that you're unwilling to defend them in a public setting?
No, I will actually elaborate on anything you want to talk to me about, but I think it is more productive for your audience, for me, and for you to have a conversation that is not fixated on just the content of Twitter.
Well, I think that the content of the Twitter discussion
brought-
frames the entirety of the
fine.
discourse.
Well, not always, because like I'm obviously like I mean I don't like to take I don't take everything that you say on Twitter for face value.
You should.
I do know that you get.
I don't say
Why?
dumb shit on Twitter.
You get no, I don't think it's not about whether you say dumb shit on Twitter. It's that anyone can say anything on Twitter. And so generally when anyone says a take or an idea, I try to not take everything with a grain of salt. I don't like literally see something on Twitter and go, that's exactly what that person believes in.
This is a dog shit
I usually,
argument.
Then
like,
why
if
don't
it's
we go
something-
through these so I can clarify how serious
if I can
you
look at if I can look at something and I go, oh, I think this person's like kind of shit posty or being memey, I just like don't care. It's
So
like,
first of all,
whatever.
first of all, then why don't we go through these tweets and you can tell me what you meant and what was memey or shit posting? And second of all, you're lying right now because you quote tweet me
Why am I
all
lying?
the time. You quote tweet me or you take screenshots of me on Twitter and impugn my ideas constantly. The idea that you just play live and let live with Twitter conversations is factually incorrect. You play serious with them until somebody holds you to account for the stuff that you say. In which case, oh, it's Twitter. Oh, it's just hyperbolic. Oh, no. Let's talk about the ideas. Well, I want to talk about the ideas, but why don't we start that by clarifying what it is you believe in the context
but like
of
here's
our
the
conversation?
thing. I don't. Okay, so let me back this up. How serious do you want to have this conversation with me?
I'm quite prepared to have a serious conversation about our
So
conversation.
if you want to have a serious conversation, then I would expect you to have the maturity to just
Ignore the stupid shit you say on Twitter.
Well, if you want, like, I mean, I say stupid shit on Twitter. We all say stupid shit on Twitter.
I will ignore everything on Twitter. I will drop the entire thing if you say these words. I say dumb shit on Twitter, and I do not want to defend it because it's not defensible.
Why are you boxing? Why are you boxing me into this corner? Why do I have to?
One or the other. It's defensible or it's not defensible. It's worth talking about
because
or it's not worth talking about.
That's not how basic communication works, or even implicitly implying any of the information.
Mel should just bite the bullet here. If Mel thinks that she says dumb shit on Twitter, and she's like, yeah, I say a lot of dumb shit on Twitter, it's not defensible. Mel should just bite the bullet here, but she doesn't want to give Vaush the optic one, I think.
Information that we looked at.
You're just go right ahead. So let's talk about this. So I said, yeah, we're going to boost their standard of living too. That's they being black people or people in the global south. We'll make the entire goddamn world richer is what we'll do, which I think is a lovely sentiment.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
How would we, the United States, how would we do that?
Well, I think it's the responsibility of American leftists to try to detooth our military-industrial complex and our intelligence agencies, which would allow countries in the global south to develop with a little bit more autonomy. We can also try to do things to, say, for example, rein in our politicians domestically by focusing national attention on domestic issues. Black Lives Matter would be a good example of that. The more our agencies are dedicated to addressing social unrest domestically, the less they can do so abroad, which means we have less of an ability to fuck with countries like Bolivia or Venezuela or whatever.
Okay,
so and that would be a good way to help.
So how do we tackle the military-industrial complex?
That has nothing to do with the conversation about degrowth that we're going to have and how to tackle the military-industrial complex.
Wait, okay, hold on. Vaush just said a whole bunch of stuff about domestic policy. And then Mel asked, okay, well, how does that deal with the industrial military complex? And then Vaush is like, well, we need to talk about degrowth. I feel like these are kind of connected, or if Mel wants to make the argument they're connected, that just focusing on national stuff doesn't necessarily take away our ability to have a military industrial complex that profits off of whatever, if you're going to make that argument. I think both of these people are just really mad. Oh, actually, I don't know if, I don't actually know if the Mel person is really mad yet. I know Vaush is really, really mad in this conversation. It seems like he just wanted to do like a screaming match. Not there's anything wrong with that.
You brought it up though. You brought it up, so I'm asking.
Do you want to talk about degrowth?
Yeah, but like you brought up, you listed the things that we could do. So how does
But you realize you could ask how fractally, and we could talk about any one subject forever. Now I could have a conversation with you about the best way to address the military-industrial complex, but that would be a different conversation. If you want to pivot, you can do it the next time we talk.
This isn't a pivot. This is me just trying to like understand your framework, because I want to make sure that like I understand why you would specifically use the military-industrial complex as a solution to sort of push us in that direction.
I see you're unwilling to address the point that I made there, so I'm going to move on to the next tweet.
Wait, what the fuck? I don't even know what's happening in this conversation.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking
a conversation on the principles behind degrowth has literally nothing to do with the tactical strategy of addressing the military-industrial complex. These are not related.
I'm asking you politely for fucking brevity. I'm not trying to pivot. I am making sure that I understand.
What do you want to do with that information?
I just want to make sure that I understand your framework. Do you not know how frameworks work in conversation? I want to make sure I understand your worldview, so then when I ask my question,
that's not what a
that you
framework
can answer.
is.
You can answer it. Yes, it is.
A framework is ideological. You're asking me for pragmatic ways of disassembling.
That's not what Mel is saying at all. Oh my god, dude, Vaush is so fucking mad in this conversation. He's just fucking going full steam ahead. Holy shit. Oh no, wacky debaters.
The military-industrial complex.
No, I need to know, like, that's what your frameworks are. Your frameworks are how you would enact all of those policies and all those positions.
Frameworks are analytical.
The framing of how you view the military could be different than my view of how I view the military-industrial complex.
Do you or do you not want to reduce the power of the military-industrial complex in America?
I don't want to reduce the power. I want to eventually get rid of it from foreign, and domestic.
That is reducing its power. What do you think reducing its power means?
That's not just reducing power, because it still retains power. It just retains power in the United States. It doesn't, like, the military can still be utilized to do things in America. But when you, it's basically.
What do you want the military to do in America?
ChaosIsMel dances around a lot, i.e. genocide denial. I have a lot of negative things to say about the ChaosIsMel person. I don't think they dance around. I don't think she's danced around the genocide. I think she just blatantly denies that there's a genocide going on in China. I don't think she dances around that, no? Or that my impression is she would just say there's no genocide in China. That's it. Like, I don't think she dances around that. She's just a tankie. Who is this?
Hey, Destiny, I just wanted to tell you, she 100% dances around
She doesn't
it.
dance around it. She's a tanky.
No, I've had multiple discussions with her about this, and what she'll do is be like, is there a genocide going on in Xinjiang? And instead of answering the question, what she'll be like is, well, what about America? And it'll move around to that. Just that's why she'll never directly say it. It's so no matter
she'll
what.
never direct. Do you think that Nick Fuentes dances around being a Nazi? Maybe we just have different definitions of what dances around means.
I mean, if she doesn't answer a question directly, don't you think she's dancing around? I mean, it still could be obvious, but she's still dancing around it, so she can always have plausible deniability.
I guess if you I don't think she would ever deny that she's like doesn't think a genocide is going on. That I would be shocked. Maybe she would, but I feel like if I had her on and I was like, "You really think there's a genocide going on in China?" Her answer would probably be like, "You know, China's not perfect, and they might do a couple things that are kind of iffy sometimes. But the idea that there's a genocide going on, no, I don't agree with that. That would be my guess."
I've tried that. I've tried it 3 times. She never gives a straight answer.
Oh,
the closest ever she got is like, we don't know for 100%. If something that it's always like something like in the middle, like you can't never really tell what she's saying.
Okay, man, that sounds like genocide denial to me. But all right,
I mean,
be careful.
See you later.
America.
It's what?
Wait, I'm sorry.
When you-
What do you want the military-industrial complex to do in America?
She wants the
What do you mean
eradication
what
of
I
that.
want it to do in America? What question is that? What does that even mean? How is that related to what I said?
That's an excellent question. How is any of this related to what we're talking about? Do you want the
Because-
military-industrial complex to be reduced in its ability to influence foreign affairs? Yes or no?
So the answer, what Mel should say here is yes, but the framework, what Mel is coming at this from is Mel is trying to say, well, it's not that I want to reduce the power of the military-industrial complex of the United States. I want the eradication of that, like, not industry, not that ideology. I want the eradication of that. What's the word I'm looking for? Institution is the word I'm looking for. She wants the eradication of that institution.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Okay, wonderful.
Like,
on this, we do not disagree.
Yeah, but it's not that we don't disagree on the concept, because anyone can agree or disagree on a basic concept. But what is your that? So this is okay. So the reason why I wanted to make sure, it's really easy for us to agree and disagree on things, because broadly speaking, a lot of abstract socialist and leftist topics are easy to agree and disagree. We all know this. The important part of the distinctions of what separates me and you and our political ideologies and our principles is how much we feel we want to, how much we feel about those sort of causes.
Because this does have nothing to do with degrowth, I mean, literally nothing. We're talking about military action versus economic growth. How about you put a pin in it, and I can answer this question once we're done with the Twitter thread. Does that work?
What is even happening right now?
I suppose I'm...
Okay, wonderful.
I don't know how... Okay.
So I
all
said
right.
we're going to boost everyone's standard of living, and then you say, can you tell me how this works? Really interested to know. That's fine. It's a clarifying question. So I say, you do realize...
You couldn't do that when I asked you before. Sorry.
Yeah, because this clarifying question was relevant to the discussion that we're having.
Oh, okay. So it's only relevant to this particular part, but it's not relevant when I ask you, like in the conversation.
It is relevant when we're talking about degrowth, Mel.
Well, everything's relevant about degrowth because the military-industrial complex impacts the global South and the economy's there.
You do realize
like, you do realize that, like, when the United States military sends contractors in northern Syria to guard oil wells to extract that oil out of Syria with the SDF, that is the military impacting the global South. And that oil does belong to the Syrians.
Why are you under the impression? Why are you saying this? I already said that one of the ways in which I would try to reduce the American influence on the rest of the world. Wait, hold on. You realize the only reason I brought up the military-industrial complex is because I know the thing that you just said. But we've already addressed this.
So if you know this, then why can't you say that?
Mel,
if you know
because
this, then
we're
why can't
talking
you
about
just tell me?
degrowth. Mel, I know you don't want to go over these tweets. You can leave the call if you don't want to go over them. We have to get through them to get to the broader conversation. That is the price of entry.
You can just ask me.
So anyway,
you can just be a normal human being and just ask me how I feel about these things instead of reading every single tweet.
If I was talking to a Nazi who wait, hold on.
Vaush,
I was talking
this is
to
not
a
how
Nazi
normal fucking
and
human beings talk.
Wait,
no one just reads from a fucking tweet and goes, "Well, what did you mean by this and that and the other thing?" Like, that's ridiculous.
I'll be happy to explain. I'll be happy to explain this to you. So I talk to Nazis very often. Fascists.
I don't care
Nazis.
if you talk to Nazis. I don't fucking care. I don't care. What does that have to do with this? I don't fucking care.
Well, you know, if you let me continue, then I'd be able to explain to you how it's relevant.
I know you debate Nazis, okay? We all know that's how you got...
Hey, Mel, come on. Now, I talk to people like that pretty often, and what I find they do is they act like absolute morons, or often they dog whistle on social media, but then when I talk to them in person, they lie to me. So I think that you're about as honest as a member of that group.
So I am now a neo-Nazi. You're going to call a trans woman of color a neo-Nazi.
Ooh, nice lib. Wait,
he didn't say that she was a Nazi. He just said she argued like one.
As dishonest as one.
Said.
Not that you are one. Thank you. And
but
yeah,
you're still
considering
comparing
your
me to
propensity
one.
for
So why
denying
would you
genocides,
comparing
I don't
me to
know.
one?
So
why would you compare me to one?
Considering
That's
your
silly.
propensity for denying genocides, I don't know. Maybe you got some cards up your sleeve. Who knows?
Uh-oh.
No.
Here
why
we go.
would I do that?
So anyway, let's continue.
Oh, never mind. I'm not going there.
You do realize not all growth is driven by...
Why was that relevant? Why was that
I'll just
picture
mute
of
you and then I'll
Twitter
continue. There we go. So, yeah, I will mute you because you're clearly unwilling to talk about this because you know the shit you say is incredibly fucking stupid and you don't actually want to defend it. So I'll just go, and when I'm done reading it, I'll let you on. You do realize not all growth is driven by colonialism, right?
So mad.
Full economic development worldwide under autonomous socialism would add billions to the modern labor force. Neocolonialism doesn't generate total wealth, it limits it while ensuring that the rewards are gained unequally. All right. Welcome back. Did you hear that?
No, I wasn't paying attention.
Well, do you remember the tweet?
Oh, no, I don't read.
So that's not funny. I should encourage that. I'm sorry.
I mean, we can both play stupid if you want. If you're gonna mute me, then I can just be stubborn about it. If you're gonna be a child, I really sincerely want to have I've been wanting to have a mature conversation with you for like
You're doing
months
very
now.
good. Now, I wanted to talk to you about degrowth.
Very condescending.
So wait, can I ask you just some yes/no questions? I know you have trouble with those, but I just want to know.
So.
Wait, that's a yes/no. Wait, that was a yes/no question.
If your entire thing is just to sit here and just say, ask me yes/no on every single thing that I believe in to extrapolate some kind of baseline framework of what I believe in, but that's what everyone seems to do. So like.
So
if you're just gonna
the reason why people ask you yes/no questions is because they don't think you're honest.
You don't know people. You don't because this is Twitter. Because this is Twitter.
So when people no, this is a live stream, Mel. So wait, when people ask you, are the Uyghur Muslims being genocided, and you don't answer yes or no, is that because you're principally opposed to yes/no questions?
Why is this important? This is not important. I can't do anything for the Uyghurs, and neither can you. So can we talk about economic degrowth?
Wait, hold on. Wait. I can't do anything for Jews in the 1940s. Does it matter whether or not I say yes or no to the existence of the Holocaust?
That's a ridiculous comparison. Let's talk about
Wait, you just said you don't care about your answer because you can't affect it. That's the same for the Holocaust. The Holocaust happened 80 years ago.
That's a really silly pivot. Can we talk about degrowth?
You actually can't answer. This is why, by the way, it's very important to go over not what you want to talk about, but what you don't. You are an unfathomably dishonest person, and you clearly don't want to have this conversation.
I've been wanting to have the conversation about degrowth, but like you don't want to have it with me.
No, you didn't at all.
You just want to read tweets and like try and dunk on me, and it's kind of silly.
So then what's your opinion on this tweet that is about degrowth?
I just want to talk about degrowth.
What is your opinion on the tweet that I provided? Do you realize...
What's your definition of degrowth, Vaush?
I provided a tweet. Would you like to give me your opinion on it?
Vaush, what's your definition of degrowth? Tell me.
All right, then I'll move to the next set of tweets, and I will bring... I mean, if you can be quiet, you can stay here.
Can you tell me the definition of degrowth? Like
we have to go through the tweets, and then we can have a broader conversation.
You don't have to go through the tweets. We don't have to go through them. I came here to have a conversation with you, but you know, if you want to be bad faith about this, then, you know.
Yes, going over a topic.
We're gonna read these goddamn tweets, whether you like it or not. We're gonna read these tweets.
So then.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then you say, almost all the growth in the global north is from wealth and resources extracted from the global south in some way.
That's true.
Even if it isn't directly exploitative, it depends on the down-the-line commodified exchanges with capital that abuse fragile systems. See IMF, World Bank. You're literally doing the, well, I'm a first world socialist and I don't care about the global south stance. It's like, what? So the reason why I don't like these tweets very much is because nowhere in any of my tweets do I ever say, imply, or suggest that wealth in the global north is not derived from exploitation from the global south.
But why can't you just say that in your reply so I know that you know that, so I don't have to implicitly correct it?
Right here. I did in the reply directly. Nothing about this involves the global south. Economic development will make everyone on Earth richer.
But it does, because that's where colonialization occurs, is mainly in the global south.
Right,
so
and then it's a good thing that I said in the previous tweet, autonomous socialism with full economic
Can you
development.
define me the word autonomous socialism?
Autonomous means free from outside or foreign influence in the context of nation states, which is what we're referring to here. So
I thought we were referring
autonomous
to
economic.
well, autonomous is not nations. So the word autonomous never has referred to nation states. It's always referred to an economic policy. So can you define what autonomous and economic policy mean?
Wait, what does that mean? Wait, what? Absolutely, you're going to refer to whether or not nations are autonomous or not. I don't understand. I feel like these guys are now just trying to like out mind fuck each other or something, or get like weird one ups on. I don't even know.
So I think that anyone above the age of 4 reading this tweet and seeing the word autonomous socialism after full economic development could probably interpret that what I'm saying is that these countries, first of all, what you said is not correct. Wait, hold on. More gibberish isn't saving you here. You were incorrect in what you're saying, and I know more about econ than you do. So any reasonable
Why do you assume you
person,
do? Why do you assume?
could
Can't you
any
just treat me
reasonable
like
person,
equal?
your question was gibberish, so I can't answer it.
Gibberish. You're not treating me like an equal. You're just assuming that I'm stupid this entire conversation. Do you always?
I'm not
like, just
assuming
talk
anything,
down to
Mel.
people?
So
yes, you are. You've
this-
never talked to me. You have never.
All right, muted. Anyway,
Oh my
I think that any
god.
reasonable person from this tweet could probably see that by autonomous socialism, I mean
Jesus.
developing independently, like freed from the IMF and the World Bank and other neoliberal systems that are used
This is a
to
grumpy
exploit
Vaush
the
day.
developing South. There we go. So I
Can
think
you give me
in this
can you
tweet,
give me the definition of autonomous, please?
I did.
Economically.
And then I
No, you
think in
didn't.
follow-up tweets, I also made
Can
it
you
perfectly
say it to
clear
me
that
right
I'm
now?
talking
Do you
about
know
economic development.
Do you know the definition of autonomous? Of an autonomous zone?
Wait, what the
financially,
fuck?
economically, Is what
Wait,
this refers to?
nobody's talking about an autonomous
My
zone like Hong
cross!
Kong. We're talking about autonomous economic development under
An
socialism.
autonomous zone isn't Hong Kong. An autonomous zone is an economic free
Well, it's a
state.
special, yeah, hold on. Autonomous. Let's take a look at a Google definition. Hold on.
I asked you for
So
the
hold on.
economics.
Number 1, having the freedom to govern itself or control its own affairs. So considering the fact that I specifically mentioned the Global South controlling its own affairs, following
But-
that up with a statement
but
on
the
how the
word that
IMF
you-
and World Bank
but the word
actually
that
do the
you-
work
but
there.
The word that you said is economic autonomous development. That sounds like a whole phrase that has to mean something. What does that mean?
I
What is
cannot
autonomous?
help you if you don't know what words mean. That's not a burden I'm willing to shoulder.
I'm asking you what the definition means, so I know what your working definition is. And I
Well,
asked
now
you
you
for it,
know.
and you can't.
It meant-
Why can't you tell me?
The definition of autonomous as I used it was, coincidentally, what you can see the definition is if you Google the word autonomous.
I said autonomous economic zone, full phrase. I didn't say autonomous because I'm not a child. I know what the word autonomous means. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
I have already told you what the word autonomous means.
No, I asked for autonomous, socialist, whatever that was. That is the word that I asked you for.
So, and then the last tweet interaction, because it petered off
so you're
after
not going
there.
to tell me your definition. You're just going to just use
I
anonymous.
have already
and
provided the definition. You're just trying to stall the conversation as much as you can.
I'm not stalling. I want you to tell me, but
So,
you won't tell me for whatever reason.
The
You'll just
funny,
mute me again.
the last thing in the Twitter interaction here. So I asked this. This is a direct yes/no question. I know you don't like those. Could a nation in the global South uplift itself through economic development, assuming it was able to
Sea
maintain
lining question. Like, it's
political
just kind of
autonomy
like-
and develop in ways which served its own people and not the business interests of the West? I think this is a really, really good question because it directly corrects the problem that you seem to have, rather
It
than
doesn't
just
correct
using.
anything. It just anyone can read that and agree with it. But what do you stand for principally with those things?
So
Like,
wait,
how do
you
get
agree?
there?
Wait, you agree then that a nation in the global South could uplift itself through economic development?
With it being completely removed, yeah. But that's what any nation, though. That's obvious. Anyone with a
Oh.
basic economics degree knows this.
That's crazy. So if we could develop a
Real quick, okay? This is a rule that I've kind of been breaking out, okay? In some of my debates when I hear people do this. If you're having like a discussion on some academic topic, so be it philosophy, economics, whatever, don't ever. As soon as somebody's like, let's look up the definition in the dictionary, don't do this anymore, okay? This is at that point, then what you need to say is like, okay, well, this conversation might be beyond us. Let's move to something different, okay? That's what you do when you write speeches in high school, okay? We're going to talk about freedom. Merriam-Webster defines freedom as the blah, 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 blah. Don't don't ever just don't ever like cite the dictionary when you're talking about like a more academic topic, because the dictionary definitions are never going to be sufficient. It's just not, that's not how these conversations work. I don't know if I need to elaborate on that more, but like you need to have more context for a topic than just grabbing a definition from the dictionary. That's not going to really explain any of the topics that you're talking about. You totally need to elaborate more. Like, no, I'm not even sure if I can think of an example of this. Whoops. Like if I just look up like a statement, like if we're arguing about whether or not an idea is like, is this moral realism or not? And then I just read, well, moral realism is a position that ethical sentences express proposition refer to objective features of the world. Objective features of the world. So the tree is green. That's moral realism. I'm reading it right in the definition. And green can be a way that I feel about something, so that's ethical. I'm just saying, I can't think of the best example. Like people like read a definition and they're like, it's kind of sort of right the way they're using it, like from just the words. But if you lack the full context around it, it doesn't. You can't really have a debate with somebody off of like just reading like a definition in a dictionary. Like you need to have a comprehensive understanding of the topic. Fuck. Where did this happen? This came up on a Prime K's panel a week ago, and this is why I'm remembering this, because people were having a back and forth conversation about a particular topic, and somebody's like, okay, well, we can look this up in the dictionary. It's like, wait, no. If we're trying to look up things in the dictionary, the topic is already like, let's just move on to the next thing, okay? Because it just doesn't work if you're having an academic conversation, so the topics are a little bit more complicated, you can't just appeal to a dictionary definition and say, look, now I understand this thing, because that's not really how it works. I wish I could think of a better example of this. Maybe I'll try to think of one later. Like the definition of socialism is pretty yikes. Socialism, a theory system of socialism that advocates the ownership and control of the means of production and distribution. Well, that's actually okay-ish. But it's still not going to get the whole point across, but yeah. Would you just say it's an appeal to authority? No, it's not about it being an appeal to authority. I'm just saying it's just not a good... The dictionary just doesn't... It just doesn't work for more complicated topics. You need like a better understanding of things.
A political system that had foreign interference
Vaush?
reduced, more countries.
Vaush?
Wait, hold on. None of this tweet thread, the entirety of this tweet thread, where you were saying, I'm white, I'm a neoliberal talking point haver, what have you. Oh, you said it was a neoliberal talking point to say that you should increase economies. So that was good. You know, neoliberalism means whatever.
No,
it's
how you're uplifting. Most of the time when most of the time when countries are trying to uplift countries in the global south, they're using sort of things like the World Bank, or they're using.
Have I ever advocated for the World Bank? Can you find a tweet or a video or anything of me advocating?
It's not that you're directly advocating for the World Bank.
Saying autonomous socialism and then later clarifying saying uplift itself in ways that serve its own people and not business interests of the West. Have I not sufficiently indicated?
I mean, like, it's fine. I'm just disappointed. I'm just kind of disappointed in you. Like, I just figured this was going to be a pretty, like, I don't know.
So you don't have an answer. So you know that I clarified my point perfectly well and you were being deliberately obtuse. By the way, this was a yes/no question and you didn't answer it. Afterwards you said, I'm not doing a lengthy dumb Twitter fight with you, after you had quote tweeted every single reply to maximize your fans' engagement on the subject. I
don't have fans. I just have people that like shit posts that I say on Twitter. I don't know why you...
Oh, that was a really good one. Oh, no, that was a really good one. Hold on.
Trying to use the definition of concentration camp when referring to what's happening at the border might be a good example, buddy.
Sure. So what the guy said about how, like, when Rob wanted to look up, Rob was trying to figure out if being a trans person was a mental illness. And so he was looking up, like, I think he just looked up in the dictionary, like, mental illness. And it's like, you're never, like, if you go to a therapist or a psychologist, like, no one is opening the dictionary for your diagnostic criteria, right? That would be a good example of, like, why you can't just run to the dictionary for some more complicated topics. Yeah.
So we've done it.
There
We've
are
gotten through the
fans.
tweet thread. Let's just talk about the ideas now. That wasn't so bad. It could have been over in about 3 minutes if you hadn't been so obstinate. But if I were you, I
wasn't
wouldn't have
being
wanted to go over
obstinate.
those either.
Is this a win for you? Do you feel good about yourself?
Every interaction I have with people on your intellectual level is by default a win for me. So
Why
I'm
are you saying
perfectly comfortable
intellectual
with it.
level?
Because I
Why
think
are
you're
you
stupid and dishonest. I think the dishonesty is the worst one, by the way.
Jesus.
I'm totally
Well-
okay with like having dumb people on from time to time. Sometimes I'm friends with
Okay,
them.
so this is just a game to you, right?
Yep.
No.
Is this the
No, I
grift?
take
Is
this very
the game?
seriously. I think you do
You
measurable
take
harm
this
to the
very
discourse.
Oh, what am I
Oh,
hurting
that's
then?
one of my
Tell me who am I hurting?
phrases.
Well,
Aw.
well, first of all, wait. There are a couple
to
million
the
weaker
discourse.
Muslims that are currently in the process of being
How am I
persecuted by the
physic-
state.
What am I physically doing? How am I physically
Physically
doing?
doing. Okay, so we're eliminating
what I'm
all
doing.
internet action. I don't know what you do in real life with your physical body.
So what? So how? So then I obviously can't do anything. For
Wait,
those
so if I'm
people.
talking to a Nazi and I'm like, I think you do harm online with your shitpost, they're like, I mean in real life, what am I doing? I
I'm
don't
not
know
a
what you're
Nazi,
doing.
so why are you comparing me to them?
Because the point there wasn't your ideology, it was the idea that the only way to measure harm is by physical actions you take in the real world. That was very dishonest of you, Mel. I wasn't comparing you morally to a Nazi, I was pointing out that the argument would also be disingenuous if it came from them.
Vaush is correct here.
Your ideas are harmful. You share them through
Aw.
communication.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
See?
Are-
They
are
do
you
that too.
upset?
Oh, libtard, you don't like racism.
I didn't
You're
call you a
lang-
I didn't call you a retard.
So this is why I called you stupid. You don't seem to understand how analogies work. So I'm not comparing the things you believe. I'm comparing the ways in which you're dishonest.
But it's an unnecessary analogy that doesn't prove anything. Now, if the analogy
Well, you
proves
don't
something,
understand it, so I imagine it's very
why
confusing
do you
when
say
I
I
say
don't
it.
understand it? Oh, okay. So again, we're going to be condescending.
Wait, if I compared you to say like Joseph Stalin, would you be like, I don't have a black hair. Wait, you do have black hair. What's an example? How tall was Stalin? I'm not that tall.
I'm actually taller than Stalin,
Oh,
by the way. He was like 5'4".
let's say Stalin was 5'1". I don't know. I'm not 5'1".
Okay.
You compare me to Stalin. I'm not 5'1". You seem to be missing
full.
the point of the comparisons. You know?
Really, the comparisons are just a little innocuous and silly, and they don't.
You don't
mean
seem to
anything.
understand them, so I don't know if you're in a good position to determine how worthwhile they are.
I mean,
So do you
I'm
want
not
to
a
talk about
Nazi, so
degrowth?
that's-
Here, do you think that we can improve the world economy for every single person living on Earth today while also reducing the inequality in the global market?
It depends on what kind of exploitation is going on. So when I look at degrowth essentially means that we have to restructure the economy in a way to where we minimize the amount of exploitation that we are doing. The problem is a lot of
I was gonna say, wasn't Stalin like 5'7" or something? I may be wrong.
resources that we require to function our society primarily come from places that are in the global south, especially with like computers and cell phones and these things like that. So there are like raw conflict minerals. So these things are like diamonds, cobalt, tungsten, lithium, and the expensive amount of labor that needs to go into extracting those minerals. 'Cause it's very, very expensive to pull lithium out of the ground. You can't just like show up and pull it in. It requires a lot of infrastructure. So you have to build the infrastructure in the country and give those workers good conditions, make sure that they're safe, create logistical support so they can move those minerals out of that country, make sure that those workers are getting paid properly, and all has to be done through cooperation, through like borders, international trading, and all these sorts of things. And you have to make sure that like you're only taking as much as that you need. Now the problem is in the United States we hyper consume things. We look at capitalism and Bitcoin and all of these kinds of methods, right? So Bitcoin is incredibly environmentally toxic, just like NFTs, right? So these things require lots of computers to put all these things into the blockchain, and so we need and computers can't process forever. They're going to burn out. So when they burn out, we need more chips. Where do we need to get those chips? Well, we need to get those parts from.
I noticed that
lithium.
none of this has anything to do with the question that I asked.
Jesus.
How does it not?
Because I was asking you if you believe we could uplift the quality of life for every person on Earth while minimizing or reducing market inequality. I understand that there are ways in which we inefficiently consume resources.
Yeah, but that's the point is like we can't without like completely like restructuring like whole economic systems.
So if we could restructure economic systems.
In order to uplift groups that don't have the proper systems, we have to provide them for them in some kind of way. But we can't do it to where we're like sending in a military or using unfair like trade regulations, because a lot of times if people are going to want to invest in a foreign country, they're going to want to get more out of it. We're not going to want, like, capitalists and industrialists, they don't want to have these people get paid well.
So there's an MBER study that was interesting to me. A big kind of myth is that I think capitalists want countries that are really fucked and have shitty worker rights and all that because it gives them like better like labor or cost, basically. You could get cheaper labor. But I think the current school of thought, I think the idea is that capital actually prefers to move to countries with more stability because there's less likelihood of like economic turmoil that will cause their shit to get expropriated or that will just cause like a collapse that will cause all their capital investment to be gone. So I think firms tend to prefer places with better worker rights compared to places with less worker rights and higher instability. I guess it's kind of a real world example list. You can see all of the Vietnamese labor reforms that were going to happen underneath the TPP stuff that kind of got canceled.
So
wait,
we have
again, we know this is a socialist channel. I'm asking you, do you think?
I don't think.
I know you don't. I'm
know.
aware, and I don't think you're a socialist either. So the feeling is mutual. Do you think we could make the entire? I didn't even say you weren't a
socialist. Why are you throwing in these little ad homs? I don't think you're not a socialist.
Like, I don't think you are then. But do you think that we
do you think I'm not a socialist?
uplift?
Hey, if you're gonna look, if you're just gonna give me ad homs,
believe we can do this?
No, Vaush. If you're going to give me ad homs, look, let's have a conversation where you stop doing ad homs, where you stop just throwing in these little snipes because you look and you sound like a child. It's not liberal civility politics. You just sound like a child.
I think you're about as disingenuous as. Actually, you're significantly more disingenuous than that Canadian Nazi I had on before. At least he was upfront about the stuff that he believed. So wait, hold on. The only reason.
Why are you so obsessed with this?
Wait, again,
my guy?
you don't understand the comparison. Can you explain the comparison that I just made?
Anything because I'm just a stupid dumb fuck Tankie, am I?
Can you explain the comparison that I just made? Like, what was I comparing?
I don't care about your Nazi comparison. I don't
you
care
can't.
About
this is why. Wait, hold on. This is why I'm mean to you. You're either unwilling to or incapable of even processing the points that I'm making. Probably because you didn't come on here expecting to be criticized for the stuff that you said.
Because I figured you were going to talk about Twitter, so I mean, it's whatever. I actually very much expected that, by the way.
You've obfuscated every stage of this conversation, and you're still doing it because I'm asking you, do you think it's possible to exceed the current standard of living, the material production, the productivity of every country on Earth, to elevate it and to equal it?
No. Not in the current state that we're at right now. We cannot do that.
Not in the current state. Obviously, the current state is what it is, but with changes made.
What does the hypothetical matter? Like, what is, like, okay, Vaush, agreeing on a hypothetical.
Wait, you realize socialism doesn't exist in the real world? Would I be like, hey, do you want socialism? And you're like, yeah, and I'd be like, why does the hypothetical matter? What does that even mean? Do you think there are changes that we can make to our system?
Obviously. That's such an obvious fucking yes.
That's great. Then we agree.
It's child shit. It's like child shit.
It's child shit to believe that there are advances we can make technologically and socially to uplift everyone on Earth while mending economic inequality. That's child shit to have that goal in mind. We could probably do it with the level of technology we have today. We probably could. I believe that.
Tech doesn't actually, well, but the thing is okay. I don't disagree with you that we can't do it with the tech level that we have. The problem is the current level of tech distribution in the world is incredibly uneven.
That's a social problem. Why do you keep answering my questions in ways that
it's not a social problem, it's an economic thing.
Yes, with changes made.
But how do you do those changes? Like, what are those changes going to be, though? You're not
you acknowledge then that my original point was correct. You're just a stickler for details. You want to actually talk about it.
No fucking shit.
So then you're on Twitter then, you were just wrong. I was correct, you said I was incorrect, but you weren't actually saying I was incorrect. You were saying, could you elaborate further? You were acting as though you disagreed with my belief when all you were actually apparently doing is saying I didn't elaborate enough while fighting a Bloodborne boss.
What?
Okay, wait, I'll say it again, but slower. So you agree with my belief that it is possible to uplift everyone and bring about equality, but on Twitter, you didn't. I laid that point out clearly, and you kept disagreeing with it by implying.
Can you explain why it's economic instead of social? So it sound I don't know if they ever got to this, and I might be wrong here, but I'm just assuming based on where Mel was going. It sounds like what Mel's argument was going to be was that regardless of whether or not we lift some countries out of poverty is not relevant, because the economic structure right now necessarily means that because of where certain supply chains are located, certain countries are always going to be exploited for the material benefit of other countries. It sounds like that's where she was going. So the example she was given was like, well, let's say in the West, we need more computers and blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't matter how uplifted out of poverty countries are, we're always going to be going to other countries to get like computer chips manufactured that are probably going to be poorer countries and people of color and et cetera, et cetera. I think there's multiple problems with this argument, but I think that was the argument that she was eventually going to get, but we never got there because Vaush mad.
I was like pro IMF, even though I very clearly indicated otherwise. So your everything on Twitter, we can just wipe away. I can see why you didn't want to talk about that. Now, if we're to talk now about, yes, it is possible to uplift everyone, and yes, we can address equality, how do we do it? Then I think that's a wonderful conversation. But that's not the conversation you wasted my time with last night. It's a different conversation.
Oh, I mean, I just muted you. I didn't hear anything that you said. You've been doing it to me.
Gotcha. So do you then think that, so you think it's possible to do this?
I think overwhelmingly that we can influence overall growth within the world geopolitically, if we make the quantitative steps to reduce our overall impact that we are putting on in terms of exploitative terms on the global south, which I think most people agree with. Now, I think the contention is how we get there and what we do with that.
No, you at no point on Twitter said, how do we do this? Or you said like, or after I explained how we did this, you argued with the premise, not with the means by which you achieved that premise. You didn't believe that.
What?
Wait, the original video of me playing Bloodborne was me saying, what's the point of socialism if it lowers the standard of living? I want to be able to keep my iPhone.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Wait, what was wrong with that video if you agree with my statement then?
Can I ask you a question?
Can you answer
Are you willing to give up your iPhone so someone else can live better?
Like conceptually, like
No,
if there was some sort of, well, I mean, do we mean like a government policy? Like get rid of that?
Are you willing to live in a lower standard of living, like live in a smaller apartment or house or wherever you live in the Pacific Northwest? Are you willing to live are you willing to change your lifestyle, change your position?
The answer that Vaush should be giving here is, Vaush should say, of course, if there was no other alternative, I would be willing to give up a certain standard of living to ensure the comfort of other people around the world. However, I don't believe that it is necessary that people in the West need to make a massive sacrifice to their standard of living. I think that we can uplift everybody to Western standards of living. That's logically following from his earlier statements. This is how Vaush is supposed to answer this question. We'll see what happens.
How you live so that we can, all kind of live a little bit more equal.
Wait, so me personally does this for everyone, or you mean there's a bit more economic austerity? You're advocating for austerity politics here in America.
What? No. I don't know what Vaush thinks austerity means, or I don't know what I think austerity means. My understanding is austerity is people that are hyper conscientious about government budgets, and then oftentimes this is paired with a tax on like certain forms of welfare in order to reduce the budget requirements of government spending. I don't think this has anything to do with austerity. This is a form of austerity in just a different form. The reduction of the consumption of certain luxury goods would be considered austerity. Is that true? Maybe. Well, let's dictionary definition it, boys. Austerity measures are reductions in government spending, increases in tax revenues, or both. These harsh steps are taken to lower budget deficits and avoid a debt crisis. Governments, I don't like to use austerity measures unless forced to, but I've never heard austerity refer to like people reducing their consumption of something. I've never heard that before in my entire life, but maybe? Maybe? Okay. I'm going to stick with my definition.
That's not austerity.
You are, by definition, arguing for austerity. Are you asking me if I'm...
Who just joined? Hello?
Oh, you're just going to say Vaush is being pedantic here? Because when people say austerity, they generally mean fiscal austerity, which is what you're talking about, and that's what I would generally understand. But he's technically right that austerity just means having less stuff, but most people mean fiscal austerity.
Oh, that's really stupid.
Yeah, it's like if you were to
So that'd be like if you had like a really big like budget surplus, and you're like the government is running at a deficit, and then you argue about that for 2 hours, and then eventually like, oh, I meant an ethical deficit, and you're like,
it's really dumb and pedantic. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
They're gonna have this disagreement about austerity versus fiscal austerity for like 10 minutes. Good luck.
Oh boy, all right.
Willing to embrace austerity for equality?
No, that's not austerity.
Okay, let's go to Google again. Hold on.
How is subtracting the amount of living that you take austerity?
Okay, I don't even think the dictionary can say Vaush on this one. Oh man, I'm really curious how he's gonna get to the right answer here, because austerity is a fairly simple concept, I think, but
like how is downsizing austerity? That's not austerity.
I'll leave that one to the historians.
oh no, he googled it, and he realized he was wrong, and now he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Oh god.
So, you're advocating for like austerity.
I'm not advocating for austerity.
You just
We had a mic moment. Oh no.
repeated the
You-
definition of austerity.
That's not the definition of austerity.
That is how austerity manifests. Yeah, people say tighten your belts. We're going to need to reduce the deficit. But if state
I'm not
resources are
wanting
being
to- I'm not
dedicated to
wanting
fixing
to
inequality,
reduce the
then that would be.
Mel isn't talking about fiscal policy at all, so it's kind of weird to call this austerity.
austerity.
I'm asking you. People lowering the standard of living so people can equalize the economy is not austerity. It's
Wait.
only austerity when the government is incentivizing programs that sort of that completely move entire industries to other parts so like
Wait,
so
you
for
think
example,
austerity is when you outsource jobs? What?
I didn't
Wait,
say
is that-
outsourcing
did
jobs.
Mel
Move
say that?
industry from one part to another.
That's not
I don't know what definition Mel is giving of austerity here in terms of moving industry either. I'm not sure, but listen, you know what? Here's a rule, okay? If we're over here in the great land of America, just don't use austerity, okay? That's not our word, okay? That's not our word. That's a European word. Don't use it. Just don't say austerity, okay? We just never use it over here in the United States or in Canada, okay? Just leave that to the Europeans. They talk about austerity way more than we do. We just talk about it under a different concept. We call it cutting the deficit.
outsourcing. You have to move jobs all the time in the United States, depending on climate, depending on markets. Like,
Look, okay, you can spend some time with the dictionary later. I can't help you on this one. Okay,
what do you mean?
Oh,
so
people in
just
Canada
so
talk about
I can
austerity?
understand.
Okay, maybe
So
it's
are
in the
you
US we
saying,
don't.
Like the United States
Gosh,
government
moving jobs
taxes.
isn't outsourcing. That's
Okay.
just factually fucking wrong. Me saying you want to move
No,
jobs
it's
from
okay.
another
I
part
can't-
of the
I'm
country is
I'm sorry, I
normal.
can't help you with this one.
That's how logistics work.
I can't
Jobs
lead you
don't
out of this
stay in
forest.
Jobs just don't stay in one place for decades. They have to why do you think the auto manufacturers got phased out? Because there wasn't any more jobs there.
I can't bring you out of this forest. You're going down a road I
What
can't
do you
follow.
mean?
Anakin.
This isn't. How do you not understand?
No, it's okay. Okay, I'll take the L. You know what? I'll take the L. Okay, I'll take the L. Austerity is when jobs move. Okay, okay. Austerity is when jobs move.
True.
Okay. No, it's fine. Austerity is when jobs move.
You don't know definitions. That's so unbelievable. You literally think me saying jobs moving from one part of a country to the other is outsourcing?
Okay, no, you're right. You're totally right. Okay, so anyway, so how is this happening? Is the government
No.
taxing everyone more, and because I'm wealthy, a lot of my wealth gets taxed?
No, it's not a wealth tax. It's
Then
literally
by what
just-
mechanism is my standard of living being reduced? I just want to know because it affects my answer.
It doesn't affect your answer. You can't even answer the yes or no. You can't even do what
I'm
I
asking a clarifying question. How is
You don't
my
need-
standard of living being decreased? You were the one who was a stickler for details earlier. You should be able to answer this. Are we talking government policy? Are we talking a price hike in commodities?
Would you
Or
debate
rent
Mel?
because of rent?
Yeah, I want to. I think they give consistently dog shit takes. I fucking hate this person with a fiery fucking passion. I think Vaush is just not doing the greatest argument here.
relative scarcity of goods because we're no longer buying them from the global south? Are we talking about like activist groups that are willfully through like cooperative measures trying to reduce their standard of living for the benefit of the planet? What mechanism is being used here?
Doesn't matter what mechanism we want to use. Like, are you willing? Okay, so okay, fine. What if we just all of them? Which one would you be okay with? Like, what do you not like? What methods do you think make sense for you? Like, what as a socialist, if you like, obviously, like austerity is bad. Like, I don't like austerity, and neither should you. So no, I don't think the government should be like taxing us more or forcing us to move. Like,
you don't want the government to tax us more? I think I pay too little in taxes.
You don't want the government to tax you more on commodities if commodities in the global south are more expensive, because that doesn't remove resource extraction away. It's a band-aid effect. That is
so what I'm guessing then is you're talking about trade being...
That is what austerity is.
Okay, so I'm guessing what you're saying then is that in this example, trade is being cut off from the global south, which means that we have to buy our...
It's logistically being changed. So like,
okay, it's being logistically changed, so we have to get more of our resources from the developed world, which of course costs more, and that means that everything in America gets more expensive and people have to live more austere lives for a time. But it benefits global economy because it allows the global south to...
It's not just us living a slightly lower standard of living. It's making sure that the same exploitative measures that happen in both places, like the parasitic relationship between the exploiters and the
From my
and
tax
the people that are
returns to
being
your bank
exploited,
account less than 3
are as even as possible.
Which leads to an increase in commodity prices, right?
It can. It depends on what those commodities are. So like, if it's commodities that are like artificially inflated. So like, okay, so sugar, for example, sugar is artificially inflated in the United States. So is corn. So is corn. Corn and sugar are artificially inflated
because of subsidies.
We grow so much of it, and to keep costs low and to keep it cheap for producers, and like high fructose corn
syrup, which would lead
right?
to an increase in the cost of commodities when it got shipped to America.
Well, the thing is it depends on where we're growing it to. So like, say we stop buying sugar from like Cuba and like the Caribbean, and we start growing it in Florida, and we start growing it in all of these places. Then we have to completely change logistically the mode of production. We have to completely change how we operate. And so it's not really like austerity at that point, because austerity would mean we would be having to basically pay less taxes on, we wouldn't be paying taxes on sugar because
I don't know why you keep avoiding this, but yes, what you're saying is that a change in the global trade relations between us and the global south leads to an increase in commodity prices. Yes, so that's what you're saying. You can talk around it all you want, but that's what you're saying. So you're asking, would I be willing to accept a cut to my standard of living, and every other American standard of living, because we all buy commodities in these states, if it would mean fairer trade relations between the developed and the developing world?
It's not just fairer trade relations. It's seeing how much of things it's literally changing how we produce things domestically and how we trade internationally. It's not just trade relations.
Okay, that's a component of trade.
Degrowth, the theory of degrowth is essentially the entire restructuring of the entire economy. It's not just people like making a little less money. It's not just changing trade. It's not just resource extraction.
You're like allergic to clarifying. Okay, I think we all know what's being referred to here, and it would lead to exactly what I am talking about. We were talking about this in relation to my standard of living, in which case the thing that would become more expensive would be commodity prices. Housing prices would also go up because we also get lumber and metals from other countries. Building new houses would become more expensive. Also, if our immigration system laxened up a little bit, that would mean that more houses would be produced, but it would also mean that more people would come to the States, which would increase the cost of living. So
but people wouldn't be coming to the States if we were changing the way we extracted resources, because those jobs would be staying in the global south. So it actually would neutralize.
People would come to the States because they love our freedom. All right. So anyway.
No, you can't just say that.
Please, Mel. I'm just trying to answer the question you asked so many years ago. The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't actually even know what they're talking about at the moment. This conversation is like, jeez.
It's not a yes or no answer. These things
You
are
asked me a yes or no question.
But I don't think you understand the impact of the question.
I did. No, I do. But I was asking about it in context of the relevance of my standard of living. The answer is yes. The answer is Mel. Yes, the answer is yes. But I don't think we should have to. I think there are ways to address this that don't lead to.
So then why would you agree with it if you don't think we have to? Then you actually don't agree with it.
No.
That's such a
Hold on. Wait. Hold on.
Argument.
I think what you've advocated would improve the world, but I think there's a way to improve it further that would not require that. But if all I could choose.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so Vaush finally got around to the answer. This is the correct answer I think that Vaush was supposed to be looking for earlier. That he thinks that there are things that we could do that would better the world for everybody that don't involve the West making massive sacrifices in their standard of living. Okay.
Choose what you described, I would support that.
Okay, but how would you do that though?
How would
If you think that we can do it, then how would we do that?
Okay, the answer's a little complicated. Do you want me to just ramble for a bit?
Sure, that's what I was here for.
Okay.
I wanted to know actually how you feel about it, but like you wouldn't get there. You wanted to talk about Twitter and genocide bad, woo, and all this other bullshit and calling me a Nazi. Like, fuck, just tell me what the fuck.
Crazy,
I don't
know? That whole genocide denying thing really stands out. It's really a personality highlight. It's just like
it's a fun meme, everyone.
It's a fun meme. Oh yeah, and
Mel sounds like Fuentes here.
Who knows why I called you a Nazi?
Unironically,
could have been any number of reasons why I might have drawn that
I'm
relation.
not a Nazi, silly. Come on.
No, you're not a
now.
Nazi, but you do things they do.
No, I don't. I don't do anything the Nazis do. I'm a good old-fashioned communist that lives in America.
Yes. So anyway, okay, the answer is complicated, and I'll try to. No, I'm not going to try to speak slow. So first of all, America cutting off even slightly
Be more condescending. Speak slow. No, speak slow, Vaush. I want to hear you speak slow.
Sure. If America cuts trade relations or significantly reduces them with certain parts of the global south, an interdependence that we have formed will be reduced or possibly broken, which would make it less economically devastating for us to contrive reasons to destabilize their governments or invade their people. Likewise, the American people, if they were subjected to economic austerity as a product of our desire to make global trade relations more equal, would probably lead to them being war hungry. Americans, like people of any other country, are generally self-interested and don't really give a fuck about people outside their borders, though admittedly Americans do this quite a bit more than any other country I can think of. So
Yeah, we do that.
my concern about those behaviors and that response is that it would lead to an isolationist and militarily aggressive United States that would end up trying to ameliorate the commodity price hike by invading other countries and forcibly reestablishing essentially colonialist trade relations. My belief, my hope, is that it's possible to take advantage of the coming climate change destabilization to weaken America domestically to the extent that non-government agencies from America and places in the global south with weakening trade relations to America can develop economic autonomy in a way that still fosters American economic dependence, so they can't invade, but also allows those countries to industrialize past, say, sweatshops. This system could simultaneously enrich the global south and keep America's hands off the rest of the world. Because the more economically prosperous these countries become, the less likely an invasion from America or even like foreign interference can be. The more developed a country is, the more democratized a country it is, the harder it is for America to interfere. That just seems to be the way the world works. It's easier to interfere with autocracies. It's easier to interfere with poor countries. We want to make these countries wealthy. We want to have them form international trade blocs so that countries in Africa and countries in Southeast Asia can work together to form blocks of commodity exchange that are comparable, at least a little bit, to the EU, America, and China. And if they do that for long enough, they might be able to form a kind of economic interdependence that allows them to fully break free of American trade relations in an exploitative sense, and then they are on equal playing field. They're too powerful and too interconnected to invade. Plus, if America tried to install a new government, the rest of the world would be mad at America because now we've destabilized a highly industrialized and technologically advanced country, and for that reason, we are cutting trillions out of the global economy for years to come.
Damn.
That's my dream.
That sounds pretty neoliberal to me.
Trade relations and trading blocks to fight American and Chinese economic hegemony are the best shots that we have at developing the global south. Now, the best thing about all of that is that these trading blocks are, they increase productivity. The more they develop, the more productive they become, the more wealth they generate. there is always more wealth to be found. And we're limited not by trade relations, but rather by our ability to grow without destroying the planet. If we invest trillions into green energy, which we are capable of doing internationally, we can scrub carbon from the skies and from the ocean, we can reinvigorate our planet, and we can do it without ever taking precious iPhones away from dumbass American white boys who are bad at Bloodborne. That's my dream. I think that's the better answer. I think that's the best thing that we can do.
So, there's a couple things that I'm curious. Why NGOs? Because the reason why I say this is because historically, and we can look at this, most of the global South has had incredibly bad relationships with the trade deals and agreements that have been forged with NGOs. So, if this mistrust is there, how do we reassure those people that these NGOs are not going to take advantage of them, or end up being, I guess, exploitive, not in the way that is as bad, but they're still participating in the same behavior that could potentially, it could backfire, right? Like interest could change, obviously.
Yeah.
So like the NGO could maybe see a window into going into, say the NGO is like, they start doing this for a couple years, things start going well, and then, we elect somebody else in the United States that has different interests, right? Because I don't see the thing that's confusing about like this point is America has an election cycle every 2 to 4 years. So like how do we stop another Democrat or a Republican that wants to do something maybe more war hawkish or more isolationist? Like, how does this impact how we have that relationship between the state, the NGO, and the country that we are trying to enrich, or the country that's trying to enrich itself?
Well, I want the NGOs to be there in a humanitarian capacity, not an economic one. I read a study...
But what if they don't want them there?
Well, if they don't want them there, that's their right. But I read a study that when humanitarian NGOs set up shop in developing countries, it makes the likelihood of negative foreign interference
Have money from a
likely.
tree
It
man.
decreases that.
Wow.
Because, if you're like a mercenary, force that
Right.
America sends in, if you kill 100 like indigenous natives or whatever, that doesn't make news. You kill one doctor from Chicago, and that makes international headlines. So I've heard that putting humanitarian NGOs there can go a long way towards preventing.
So I disagree. When we look at places like Rwanda, for example, where a lot of resource extraction was taking place, like in the Belgian Congo, there was a lot of like industrialization that was happening with Africa, like post-colonialism, and there was a lot of like ethnic tensions left over from that like post-colonialism and new industrialization that happened in Uganda and Rwanda and like the Belgian Congo. And there were NGOs there, and so like the NGOs that were there at that time was like Doctors Without Borders and all those people. When the genocide was happening and when like the civil wars were breaking out, the Europeans just took the NGOs home and just kind of let it happen. There was no UN peacekeeping mission besides just observers. There was no intervention. So
I don't think it's a perfect solution. I just think that it has the potential to catch some eyes on the situation.
But we have historical evidence to prove that it's not as effective. So why would we keep doing it?
Wait,
like what assures that it doesn't happen again?
It's an NGO. If NGOs,
I don't know if like one example is enough to prove the validity of Mel's statement here. I would be surprised if this is the case.
Those are generally American citizens, usually people who have direct connections to journalist groups that are now within that country. If they are killed or if something happens to them, more attention is paid than ever could if something happened to the resident, like native people of that country. And for that reason, I think it's a good stopgap. Doesn't fix every problem, and I obviously wouldn't advocate for NGOs to be put in these countries if they were A, unwanted, or B, obvious fronts for neoliberal influence. But I don't think that Doctors Without Borders is out there like pushing.
No, I don't think so either. I just wanted to clarify because my only issue with NGOs, especially within like the developing world, or even NGOs like the United States, is that more often than not, they don't engage in active exploitation or active coercion for the state. But like if there's an election or lobbying or some kind of thing, like this requires politicians to be corruption free as well. Because NGOs,
some
despite
economic
being,
stimulus so that you don't have to suffer from the
they still are kind of owed to their governments based on their citizenship or national origin or allegiance or all those things. They can still act within the self-interest of those countries if they
can't wait. Hold on. So nothing that I said to you was, under my impression, an easy thing to do. It's going to be an uphill battle to fix these problems. I think that this is a narrow way to improve the situation, but of course there are always going to be potential problems with corruption, or, I mean, it could turn out that everyone at Doctors Without Borders is like a secret neoliberal and they all came
No. I'm not trying to say that. That's a stretch. What I'm saying is I just want to make sure.
I just think that generally, I've just read positive stuff. The fact, by the way, that the EU had to pull those NGOs out of Rwanda is an indication, though, that they're more cared about than the people native there. And that probably made headlines back when it happened. I'd have to look that up. I'd be willing to bet the news story NGOs pulled out by EU probably got more prominence than the beginning of the genocide. That we care more about our people than their people. And as unfortunate as that tribalism is, if we can exploit it for the benefit of a better world, then, I mean, you know. Do
you think it's worth exploiting, though?
Well, I mean, again, how does putting Doctors Without Borders in one of these countries, like, hurt the country?
No, I wasn't saying that was exploitive. I was saying how, I was just clarifying because I wasn't sure if you meant, like, I don't think Doctors Without Borders is necessarily exploitive.
There are some good NGOs. Not all, there are a lot of bad ones, but there are a couple of good ones. I need to read up some more, but... And of course, it would be up to the country as well if they wanted.
Yeah, and the thing that sucks about NGOs is they're predominantly just, there's not like a list, right? Like an NGO could be good or it could be bad. And so when I was pushing you on this, I wasn't saying that you don't know this stuff. I just wanted to make sure that like the audience and everyone around us we all kind of know that like it is a little bit more complicated. It's not just, you know, a guy going in and doing a good thing. Because I genuinely like have the benefit of the doubt. Like I genuinely like to think that NGOs are good. The problem is some NGOs end up becoming think tanks, and I think think tanks are ultimately one of the worst. Like think tanks and lobbying is one of the worst political entrapments that we experience in the West, especially. So all those things are pretty bad. Something else that you said that I think was interesting is if we're going to. So you mentioned China, and I don't want to get in the weeds about China. This is not the reason why I mentioned China. Do you think that are you seeing this like China, the United States, and then like the rest of the world? Is that like how you see like global trade kind of boiling down to, like, you know,
America,
we have like the two big
and China are the three great capitalist evils in the globe.
$14.99. Been watching you and I want to say thank you for changing me from conservative to centrist. Also thank you for your involvement in Georgia. It's more than these leftist Twitter personalities.
Wow, thanks, bud.
The rest of the world doesn't even come close.
So are you trying to say that it would be better for like the EU, the United States, and the PRC to just completely unilaterally multipolar world just kind of ease and sort of like give, like, are we allowing, okay.
Daily Rice, $4.99. Can you debate jump on transgenderism? He was bragging about how he destroyed in your last debate yesterday.
T-jump? If anybody wants to, all they have to do is reach out to me then, sure.
Do you think...
I gotta cook these meats and then I'll come.
So how do you feel about certain like groups, like country, like, so, okay, so like, what about the EU, I'm trying to think of how to ask this. Do you think it's bad if the EU were to like set up their own sort of like Belt and Road initiative? The US sets up their Belt and Road initiative, and then China sets up their Belt and Road initiative. Because there's a lot of talk about this, because I've seen this. So Europe actually, and I can't remember the name. I don't remember which countries off the top of my head. I just saw this recently, like a week ago. But there's a Mediterranean project that I believe the European Union is doing, and they're sort of like doing like their own kind of Belt and Road thing, from like Italy to like about Greece to North Africa. And a lot of the European countries are trying to form an economic trade zone with Northern Africa and the Mediterranean, which is sort of the same thing as China's Belt and Road, which is sort of the same thing as like America's, like, say, like TTP and like NAFTA, kind of like these like trade block sort of things. Do you still think
Casey Marlowe, $4.99. Hi Destiny, I'm an election official who experienced MAGA terrorism in the primary and would love to talk about local action and building youth power.
Email me, sure.
those are necessary or are useful in terms of equilateral trade, or do you
No,
think
I
we need to? You think we need to move away from
Have you
those in
ever
their entirety
researched
in your
civil
sort of
society?
prescription for
It's
what
the
all
you
third
think we should do?
sphere of
A
society
capitalist
between
country
the
is only
public
ever
and
going to
private,
fund
but nobody
investments
talks
like that if
about
they-
it. Mel and Vaush are talking around it with no grounding of the concept.
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. I've never heard it before in my entire life.
I think it pays dividends down the line. The Belt and Road Initiative is explicitly about trying to form economic power blocks that are allegiant to the Chinese government in areas that America and the West have typically ignored. And we've been doing our own Belt and Road Initiative for like 200 years. We did it with guns and blood to begin with, and now we've started doing it with the IMF and World Bank.
Okay, hold on, I'm
Yeah,
muting
the
Dylan.
basic metric is
Vaush
exactly
frogs in YouTube chat shit.
Okay, sorry.
the same. You invest in countries up until the point where they're most useful to you and no further. China is probably smarter about this than we are, though. We tend to keep the countries that we control, you know, through soft power, in dirt, whereas China seems to understand that allowing Africa to industrialize a little bit would significantly boost their economic productivity and thus their usefulness to the CCP. But yeah,
But
still
I think
it-
there's a huge difference within. So like, regardless. Okay, so like, I have mixed feelings on the Belt and Road, but I have mixed
I'll
feelings
read
on
it after,
every
okay.
single trade deal. I don't necessarily think those trade deals are good or bad. I think they're necessary, just because we don't have a lot of multipolar trade agreements anymore. Like the world is very much like big power, as you've said. This is all true. I think my only contention with, I guess, your opinion about the Belt and Road is like, we don't keep those countries in dirt. We've turned them into dirt. We've bombed these countries. We've changed their governments over. We've put violent, democratically elected dictators in power, like Pinochet and Noriega. There was also the
This didn't put Pinochet in
I can't
power,
remember the
so I'm
guy,
guessing the other one probably not
South
either.
Korea in the 1970s.
We need to read way. We're gonna do
helped
history
put
more
these
on this
people
stream. We're
in.
gonna do way more on the U.S.
To my
imperialism
knowledge,
stuff,
and to
guys.
everything that I've read, China is not letting these countries in Africa default on any of these loans. They've actually ended up saving Africa $10 billion as opposed to, the European Union, who is indebted these countries to over 100 million.
Well, yeah,
This is Vaush is gonna repeat talking points I've gone over on stream probably. China's not gonna let any of these countries default because I think that's how China structures a lot of these loans. The idea is, of course, you're gonna default, but we're not gonna actually let you default. We're just gonna bring in our own workers and help you pay it off by us getting to control and run the port, basically. I think it's how China does it.
makes them allegiant to China. That's the long-term goal.
I don't think they're allegiant to China. I think they're just accepting a more feasible option to industrialize than the IMF
Why
and
do you
the
think
World
China
Bank
would bother investing in these countries?
for trade, because they can't use sea routes because the United States has blocked them in. It's a lot harder.
You don't think there's
China
any
does-
soft power being exerted in the Belt and Road?
Wait, can't China? Wait, is China not allowed to ship things? Is there stuff doesn't ship from China across the world? I'm not as informed on this issue, but I'm pretty sure China ships a fuck ton of shit all over the place. But I don't. I know there's weird shit that goes on in the SEA region because of territorial disputes and whatnot. But she's talking about the South China Sea disputes. Yeah, I know that there's weird stuff around that, but. Alright, sorry.
Initiative.
I mean, there might be, but it's
If
like
America did the
it's
Belt and
kind
Road
of
Initiative, you would immediately call it out for what it is. And
I
America has
wouldn't, though.
invested significantly in relationships abroad. I mean, for God's sake, the Marshall.
the difference between Wilson's 14 points on the Marshall Plan and NAFTA is that those things were done explicitly through the barrel of a gun. China is not shooting anybody in Africa. China is not putting bases there in Africa.
This is a dog shit point by Mel. Oh man. Wait, I don't understand because it seems like it's so weird because when commies start to criticize capitalist structures or whatever, they bring out their magnifying glasses and they get very nuanced and very into the nitty gritty. Where well, IMF loans are actually exploitative because if you don't accept an IMF loan, people in your country are going to be starving. So you can argue that there's some form of not aggression. There's some form of there's a good word, coercion. Yeah, that there's some form of coercion there that's preventing them from accurately negotiating the deal. But then when it comes to China building shit, it's oh well, it's good for them, right? They're doing it because they want to. LOL. Wait, what?
yet.
Whenever they did put bases there, they were told they were not allowed to have them, and then those bases were actually converted to the native country, or not the native, but like the country where they have. Okay, but it's not happening. So the thing is the United States, though, we've traditionally have always done it through force. I'm not trying to say this isn't me.
Yeah, our way is
bootlicking.
worse. Their way is better.
This isn't me bootlicking for China or saying that it's better. It's just if we're going to say that both of these things are bad, we have to.
Would you say that every like NATO base or whatever that the U.S. has, they're all done by force? Like, I don't think that we currently have bases in these places because they're there like by force, but. That's kind of weird.
At how bad they are, and I would say significantly that what America does is way worse than any initiative that the EU and China is currently doing.
Hold on, we're running down this for a while. Okay, first of all, the idea that China doesn't flex hard power is ridiculous. They have an enormous military, and their relationship, their posturing for the past 50 years has indicated that they have every intention of eventually being able to exert the kind of military influence that America does. Nowadays,
where's your evidence for the posturing? How do you know they're doing that?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Vaush doesn't have an answer.
Doing that.
How are they posturing?
What about their behavior in the South China Sea? What about their involvement in the Korean War? What about Taiwan? Like what
How's that posturing? That's just, I mean, that's not posturing, though.
Wait, for anybody that's watching the YouTube video, did he say, wait, what? And then wait for chat to come up with answers and then start reading the answers of chat? I'm just curious. I'm not saying he did. I'm just curious if that's what happened. Because when he initially responded, it sounded like you did have an answer. No, okay. All right. I'm not saying that happened, of course.
Oh, those are things they did.
Uh-huh. To exert power, like militarily, to use their
they supported the DPRK in the Korean War, but that wasn't posturing or exerting power. That was just allyship. We all do that. Every country does that.
Wait, hold on. How is using your military to get involved in neighboring conflicts to form a buffer state to prevent there from being American military bases on your border not a type of posturing?
The DPRK is in a buffer state.
The DPRK is absolutely a buffer state.
It is not a buffer state.
They are undeniable. Wait, hold on.
Oh, she thinks North Korea is some like good,
China gives a
like democratically elected.
The DPRK is because if they didn't, South Korea would become whole Korea, and then American military bases would be
That's factually incorrect. That is just historically, factually incorrect with the history that has happened in Korea for the last 200 years. You are wrong.
I feel like that's probably true.
You do not know a fucking single thing about the history of Korea.
I'm
if that is your
absolutely
opinion.
correct on this one.
You are absolutely wrong.
Wait,
you do not know anything about Korea if you think that is the reason.
Why would China do that?
Why would China do what, Vaush?
Why would China
give a fuck about North Korea
during the Korean War to prevent a total conquest of Korea and then occupy it or support it militarily, putting their soldiers' lives on the line, and then hold that position? And then in the geopolitical conflict that takes place during that region.
The Soviet Union was never going to help the Koreans, and China and Korea
China doesn't give a fuck about Korea.
Yes, they do.
No, they no.
Do you
wait.
know that? Do you know the historical ties between China and Korea?
That's not
like,
how
over the last 200
nation
years?
states work.
That's
Wait, are you seriously arguing that they supported North Korea and allowed that festering shithole of a dead monarchist state to continue to exist because they care?
They actually, but they do care in a way. It's not all geopolitics. Some of it is history.
Geopolitics. Wait, hold on.
No,
so
some of it
Marxism
is some of it is
until it involves criticizing China, and then we're getting sentimental. No, the reason why China maintains the existence of North Korea, the only reason, by the way, that North Korea hasn't...
No, that's just factually incorrect.
The
like,
only
do you know
reason
anything
it
about
hasn't imploded
Vaush,
is because it's
Vaush,
a de facto vassal of China, and the only
it's not
reason
a vassal
they want
of China.
that is because they don't want Korea.
That's just actually correct. You are basically saying that the Koreans have no self-identity at all,
Wait,
which they do in the North and the South.
North Koreans politically have nothing. You are correct in that. Absolutely nothing.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. That's not what I implied.
Wait, then we agree. They have nothing.
No, we don't. No, we don't. You have no evidence to substantiate that China and the DPRK just are only politically aligned. That's not true. It's not.
What is Mel's
just
claim here? That
politics.
China has like some sentimental value
Do
about?
you not realize that they're not just countries? They're also people that like supported each other.
I'm sorry.
Like during the occupation, they both fought the Japanese
don't
fascists.
make policies. Countries do. People vote, except in China and North Korea, by the way, where you
Oh
have
my God! Did I
vote.
really
failing
just
remnant
die?
of a democracy
Where they
and
vote.
none. People aren't what we care about here.
You don't care about the
You
people.
sound
in
like
Korea or
every
Vietnam.
liberal who's unwilling to acknowledge the existence of imperialism in America. Oh, why did America do the Marshall Plan? Well, we just cared about our European neighbors. We have history with them. No! It's
So now I'm a liberal?
geopolitics. Countries invest military and economic resources to protect their
Very
own
first
best
start of this
interests.
conversation, I was a Nazi, and now I'm a liberal. Oh boy.
I know, you're very ideologically idiosyncratic when it benefits you. The idea that China,
Benefits me? What do you mean?
a world
How does it
superpower,
benefit me, Vaush? Can you explain to me how it benefits me? How am I what am I benefiting from?
because if you weren't being those things, you would have to acknowledge that I am right. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me just say this to chat. Okay, hold on.
So it's
Map
not me telling you
of
that I'm right.
China.
Oh, I have to acknowledge that you were right.
Yes. So just to be super clear to
Because you
everyone,
always want to be right, don't you?
it's preferable to the alternative. So chat, look. This
Oh,
is a
okay,
map
so
of China.
Vaush is only right.
This is a
Sounds
map of
very
China.
cult of
Wait, hold on. I
personality.
just want to show them the map. It's a pretty map with colors, okay? So China is a big country, very powerful. There's South Korea. If North Korea reunited with South Korea in one Korea, South Korea would win that war for a wide variety of reasons. And then
It
South
won't
Korea,
work,
which is
though.
practically an American military base, would then have military bases right up here
Not
along
just a military base. but
South
okay.
Korea.
No, why
is
Vaush is
heavily-
explaining this. Mel obviously
heavily-
understands this and
heavily
disagrees.
entrenched in American geopolitical and military strength. They're not as bad as Israel is in that respect, but they are in the ballpark.
I don't agree or like you framing my home country as an American military base because
I'm sure. Wait, hold on. But I'm sure you don't mind when people say that of Israel, do you? But there are people to whom that is their home country. I saw you, by the way. You were after the shooting in those spas. You were like, I wonder why AOC is spouting xenophobic rhetoric when she was criticizing China.
That wasn't AOC. That was Ilhan Omar, by the way. Can
cares?
you like remember the things that I say?
Criticize
If you're
China
going
well.
to- If you're going to criticize me, you might as well do it correctly because it was Ilhan Omar, not AOC.
Okay, so I don't think that criticizing a country is the same as being racist against its people. I don't
I
think
never
that
said
about...
you're being racist, Vaush. I just
You
said
cla-
it seems kind of a poor framing. I never accused you of being
You
racist.
Wait,
Why did you
claim
jump
that about?
way?
Does anyone have that screenshot of what Mel? I can probably find it. You were pretty
Why you-
explicit about that.
Why are you saying that I was being? Why are you accusing me of saying that you're being racist?
Why are you looking at the things I say instead of just hearing the things that I say now? Why do you look
I
at
never.
the things I say?
But you're not. I never. But come on. Oh, now you're gonna mock
Don't
me.
look
That's
at the things I say.
But I never. But I never. But you're assuming that I'm accusing of being racist, and I never accused you of being racist this entire conversation.
No,
that
it's
seems-
just a funny. It's just a funny thing that you've done in the past that feels relevant to the.
It's
current
not
discourse.
relevant at all, actually. It's just an
Somebody
ad
else will have
hominem.
to find the-
We can move on from
I'm
that.
looking
I
at
don't.
your VG. Anyway, yeah. So again,
The thing I'm trying to say here is that like you obviously don't know anything about the history of that peninsula or the history of any of those people.
I
so
think I'm
you're
sorry.
not
If you
actually
don't think
correct.
that this is a geopolitical thing, then I think you're shockingly ignorant. Of
No,
this.
it's actually way more than geopolitics, but you don't know anything
What do
about
you
the global
think?
south.
Is
That's
it
very
if
fucking
it's not
clear.
geopolitics? What is it?
It's geopolitics, but it
Oh
is
yeah, here
also
it is. Sorry,
also
wait. We
involved
can put an end to
people
this.
that are
Sorry. So Ilhan Omar said that she was devastated by the murder of 8 people in Atlanta, including 6 Asian American women. And then you posted her retweeting an anti-Uyghur Muslim genocide thing. No human rights, no Olympic Games in China. So essentially, you said because Ilhan Omar doesn't support China's
not what I
genocide
said.
of the Uyghur Muslims, she has no right to mourn the death of 6 Asian American
That's
women.
not what I said. at
This is more
all.
reprehensible than I actually
not
remember
what I
it being.
said at
This is
all.
fucking disgusting.
That's not what I said at all. Do you want to read Radio Free Amanda's? Like she did the same thing. We can read her idea too.
So wait,
if you
hold on.
want.
Well, then why this tweet? Why this tweet?
Oh, because I wanted to. I took Radio Free Amanda's idea because that'll be funny.
Okay,
I
so
wanted to
what's
see if
the
my
what's the
audience thought it
message
was
being
funny, too.
espoused here? What's the message?
I don't know. Do you want to scroll down and read the other person that said it too? Because apparently I'm too dumb and
You
don't wanna
literally
know.
retweeted a post the other day comparing the Chinese government to Nazi Germany. And I know you have a problem with comparisons. Do you want me to explain the comparison to you?
No, I just wanted to know why you think both of our comparisons are bad because we essentially said the same thing.
Wait. No.
Why would you ever
Wait, hold
just
on.
come
I
on?
don't
Just
think you
why would you ever
understand
want to
what
just
said.
fight
If
about what
you
somebody
were agreeing
tweeted
with
for
the
like an
assertion
hour and a
I
half?
just
This
made,
seems like
I
so.
would
This
agree
seems
that
like so
this
silly.
is reprehensible.
I don't know.
Me and the other poster essentially said the same thing, and if you're this upset about a meme, then I think you need to go outside,
So wait,
my
do you
guy.
think Ilhan Omar has a right to mourn the death of those 6 Asian American women?
Why?
Yeah, this is better. Just ask questions about them. Don't
you
just
think
read the
it's
tweet. Just
hypocritical-
ask about
hypocritical for her to do
like
so?
ask clarifying questions. Seems like a
You
better.
asked, this is a silly question,
See,
by the way.
dude, again, it's like I'm talking to a
Why?
groiper. Wait, do you
why?
think
I'm not
it's
a groiper.
hypocritical
Come on.
of her?
This is such a silly question. Like,
Do you think it's
what does this
hypocritical
mean?
of
What
her?
is what does anyone get out of this? Me
This is
answering
what I
this?
mean.
There's like
Chat,
literally
people in
nothing.
Twitch chat who are saying I was being mean to her.
Nothing.
This is the person we're talking about. Anytime we have a decent conversation on geopolitics, it's in spite of, not because of her. Okay? She acts like a fucking groiper, except she wears a red flag. All right? This is why I say that tankies are just red fascists. You're Pepe posting at this
Red
point.
fash doesn't exist. Red fash is not a word. Is not
I
a word.
bet you don't think it exists. Yeah, well, you get to be red fash or fash, Mel, because you're sure as fuck not a socialist.
Which
So,
one is? Oh, I'm not a socialist.
Ilhan Omar, is it hypocritical of her to mourn the death of the 6 Asian American women?
Why does this is not relevant to anything that we've been talking about. You're just trying to box
It
me in.
really
an attack.
seems like you're saying that because she doesn't like genocide, she doesn't get that. Do you think that in some way those 6 Asian American women were complicit in the Uyghur Muslim genocide? Is there some relationship, some connection that I'm not seeing here?
Really weird that you.
Is there, I'm sorry, is there a relationship here? Because I don't understand this meme. Can you explain it to me?
Why do you care about this tweet? Did
Why
it
do you
make
care?
upset?
Guy, hey, shh, don't look at my Twitter, guys. Why do you care about me denying genocide and then saying that other people are bigots for criticizing the existence of that genocide?
I did not say Ilhan Omar was a bigot. Where did I say
Oh, what
that, Vaush?
did you say then?
I didn't say that she was a bigot.
What'd you say? What? Nothing? Just memes?
Vaush. Do you know what a contradiction is?
Just memes. Just memeing
Do you know
people.
do you know what a contradiction is? Do you not know what like dialectical materialism is, or understanding the difference in between words and how like things we do in the United States
Mel
are just as
Fuentes.
applicable to other countries?
It's a shame you weren't. It's a shame you weren't like you didn't slide down the alt-right road because you would be a spectacular groiper. You demonstrate about the same intelligence and
Really? I
intellectual
don't like
honesty.
Nazis, Vaush. I'm a trans person. Nazis are not
So,
great.
I've met trans Nazis. You could be one. Have you considered a switch?
No, never.
Really?
Nazis are terrible people.
Wait, they like genocide. You like genocide.
I do not like genocide. Genocide is very bad. Ooh.
Curious, and yet the evidence shows otherwise. Really makes you think.
Not really
Anyway,
evidence.
the
It's just,
point
it's
that
just literally saying genocide bad and a pleady emoji.
The point
I
that
don't
I'm
think that's
trying to make
ethical.
to my poor beleaguered audience is that North Korea is a buffer state. It's the same thing that
North
Soviet
Korea
Union
is
did
not
with
a
the
buffer
Warsaw
state.
Pact.
North Korea is not a buffer state. Bosch is wrong. He is absolutely wrong about Asian politics, and he needs to stop talking
I'll add
about
another
Asian
one on. Also,
He doesn't know
Mel
anything
is
that he's talking
xenophobic,
about.
okay? Mel is anti-Korean because anybody who implicitly defends the political legitimacy of North Korea
How
is
am I
somebody who
anti-Korean
despises
when
the
I'm
people
Korean,
who live there.
Vaush? How am I anti-Korean if I'm Korean, Vaush?
Any
Can you
tourism?
tell me?
Wait, how am I anti-Korean if I'm Korean? Did I Candace Owens, can we get a round of applause for this wonderful brain in chat? Please. You kidding me right now? Are you fucking with me, Mel?
Okay, so I'm Candace Owens. I'm a liberal.
You don't understand. You can't fathom.
I'm a red fash. Like, you're just using words, Vaush. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just. I'm
I
kind
know
of
you
disappointed.
struggle with them, but hey.
You know what? You're someone who has always said that you are intellectually honest, and I was really hoping to have that with you, but for some reason it just evolved into ad homs, and I'm just kind of disappointed because
And I looked at your Twitter and I asked you direct questions you didn't want to answer. And personally, I knew that you were anti-Uyghur Muslim. I didn't know you were anti-Korean people. That's really disgusting.
Why would I be anti-Korean when I'm
Because
Korean?
you
I
hate
care
them.
more. I hate
You don't know
my own
anything about them. You're okay
Yes,
with
I do.
geopolitical influence
I don't
being
know
exerted
anything
over
about
them.
my own people. I was born in Korea.
Damn. Wow, that's super vicious then. Gotta chill with that, okay? These people say I hate white people, but gotta calm down with
This
that.
is a real good look for you, Vaush.
It's inconceivable to me that A, I could have a conversation with you and feel as though I'd done poorly, or B, that any of these sycophants who'd consider you a victor in this conversation could have had their mind changed through any behavior.
I'm not trying to be a winner or a loser here, Vaush. That's silly.
You don't have to
Socialism-
try to be a loser, Mel. It just comes naturally.
Socialism isn't about winning or losing. Socialism is about building community and getting us to the glorious revolution.
Socialism is about the proletariat winning over people like you, state capitalist Mel.
Yes, I love state capitalism, apparently, according to you.
I don't know why repeating my correct statements back to me is like a zinger.
It's not correct, but fine.
All right. So we have now acknowledged that the Glorious People's Republic of the Democratic State of North Korea is actually a vassal state for China that they use to avoid direct military
They're not a
imposition.
vassal. I mean, if you're going to keep lying to your audience, you can keep lying to your audience, and that's fine. Like, people will know that you're lying.
Doesn't
like anyone
China
that
have
actually
border skirmishes with India from time to time? Wait, on the left side of this map, it literally has lines of control. Here's an India-claimed territory. Wait, how many thousands of square miles is this?
Wait, is he talking about Kashmir and doesn't know it? Uh-oh.
Well, India and China have been ruling over this particular part of...
Oh, no. This is the, wait. Why are people saying no? There are 6 disputed territories up here. I don't remember the names of them, but 2 in the northeast are owned by China, 2 in the west are owned by Pakistan, and then 2 in the south are owned by India. It's called Aksi Chin. Yeah, so this is the Kashmir area. No? It is. Hold on. Like, it's one of the territories bordering them.
of the subcontinent for about 2,000 years. It's a very, very old conflict.
Damn. That's pretty crazy. Well,
That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of these conflicts that are happening in Asia historically
have nothing to do with geopolitics and are actually because of ancient tradition. Is that what we're getting at right now?
No. It's a combination of both, actually, and that's why, like, that was the thing that I was trying to drive at.
There's no such thing as ancient tradition when it comes to geopolitics. Countries do what's in their best interest.
There's generational trauma that those people remember, right? So, like,
I don't know what any of these. I guess Vaush, I think, is more correct here when it's geopolitics. My understanding is that one of the fucky things about that region was the way that Great Britain basically divvied it up. It was my understanding for why there's like so much dispute around some of these territories north of India. I don't know if it's like a generational conflict thing, but or like a generational, like they feel bad and that's why they fight or whatever. Like, it seems like kind of geopolitical, but
they're people.
Okay, wait, hold on. Was it the American invasion of Iraq geopolitical?
It was a lot of things. It wasn't just geopolitical. It's not all geopolitics.
What other explanatory variables?
Western hegemony.
I think technically they divided themselves up after independence. I think they negotiated themselves. India wants territory that belonged to the British Raj. China wants the extent of its imperial borders. Doesn't go back thousands of years. My understanding is that the people in the Kashmir region don't necessarily identify as Indian, that those people there don't really want to be part of India. I don't know if they necessarily want to be part of Pakistan, but I'm almost positive they don't want to, or they don't want to be part of India. That's like not their that is not their prerogative, which is why they have so much like local resistance there against India, and why India used to have laws specially crafted to keep Indians out of that region, was because the people in that region are so upset about India asserting more control or autonomy over that region, or removing autonomy of that region.
It's obvious.
That
like,
Western hegemony is geopolitics.
Yes, it is. Western hegemony is 100% geopolitics.
Yeah, so it's geopolitics.
But geopolitics is such a broad brush. The
fact that it's broad means it encompasses everything.
But you're using it as
politics,
but you're using it. It's okay, but you're using. The problem is you're using it as a catch-all term.
Yeah, to describe states acting in their own interest for the most part.
It's not just states, though. You're reducing it down to just a state apparatus. It's not just the state. It is also the actors within the state. The state actors are things you have to be accounted for. Yeah, you can't just assume that
geopolitically.
No, they don't.
American support for Israel, is that geopolitical?
Not every interest
is anything geopolitical? Does that word mean anything?
a lot of things that are tied to Israel are also with Zionism and religion. It's not just
That's geopolitical.
No, it's not.
Yes,
Not
it is.
all-
Zionism literally describes the
Oh, Vaush is copying my take here to leave religion. So basically, arguments I've made in the past that I still largely stand beside. I think it's good. Is that like I think that framing these as religious conflicts does a lot of damage. I think looking at them as geopolitical conflicts is a lot more illuminating to figuring out like why people act the way they do, and then gets you away from really stupid conversations about saying like, oh, well, it's just because of a religion that this is happening. When usually that you're missing like 90% of the conversation if you assume that to be true.
support of a state. How can that not be geopolitical?
Zionism wasn't just Zionism wasn't just about a state. It was about a return to a different era. It was about returning people to a land. It wasn't just a state.
And the land, they have it now. It's called Israel. And Zionism means a Zionist is a person who defends the state of Israel.
No, a Zionist is someone that supported a very specific movement, and so now Zionism as today is just someone that generally supports Israel. That's how we view it now.
That's what
but
I
it's
just said.
That's not what the movement was focused on. Because you said that's what created Israel, and I'm like, well, that's not what created Israel. Israel wasn't just like Israel, for all intents and purposes, is a military base. We all know that it's an apartheid state.
Israel's a military.
Why would Mel say this after getting so mad about him about Vaush saying this about South Korea? Why would Mel do this?
base, but South Korea isn't? You know you all had a dictatorship on our account for a while until recently, right? We meddled very hard in South Korean affairs. We were very invested in making sure that you all were amicable military partners through the Cold War.
But the dictatorship was never owned by the United States. It was actually done independently by the Korean Central Intelligence Agency and Japanese fascists, but that wasn't the United States directly.
Oh, I
There's a
see. Wait. Does America get to wipe their hands clean of every coup and every junta that takes place in countries we don't directly invade?
No, I'm just being factually correct here. Like, I'm not saying that you're wrong.
We
I'm
backed
just saying
the
like
bad guy.
That's what happened. I'm not trying to win a dunk. I'm not trying to dunk on you or say that you're right or wrong.
We promised him resources. We supported him. We wanted a dictator because South Korea was our military base and North Korea was China's military base. Your country, as are half the countries on Earth, were just used in a proxy war between us and the communist bloc. That's what the Cold War was.
The Cold War wasn't just buffer states. That was actually subject.
What do you think NATO and the Warsaw Pact were? It was all about buffer states. That's a Cold War. We fight via proxies.
Well, the Warsaw Pact was a buffer state, but not every. Okay, so a lot of states become buffer states as things happen geopolitically. A lot of states become buffer states, but a lot of those states were actually not supposed to be. They were supposed to be independently held. Like, that was the big controversy with the Soviet Union and the whole, like, the original definition of Tankie or whatever, like the Prague Spring and stuff. Originally, they were supposed to be independent countries.
I just can't believe you're like more of an American chauvinist than I am. You're like, no, America didn't have anything to do with what happened to South Korea. That was we did that to ourselves.
No, I'm not being a chauvinist. I'm telling you what happened. America is still largely influencing Korea, but there's certain parts where it did and certain parts where it didn't. The Japanese fascists had probably more of an influence in South Korea left over after the Korean War than America did. And after America,
what is the strongest influence in North Korea?
America definitely put those people in power, but they definitely walked away, and they just used. I would argue that Korea was more used economically by the United States than they were used militarily.
Yep.
Actually, the South Korea has a massively bigger, has a higher troop presence on the DMZ than the United States. But
yeah, because that's your proxy war. But I guarantee you, by the way, that if somehow a Chinese North Korean coalition started invading South Korea, we would be at your doorstep in 30 seconds because we want to keep our military bases there. Who do you think the strongest influence is in North Korea? America's the strongest influence in South Korea now, by far. So what about North Korea?
What do you mean? I mean, North Korea is supported by China, but like, we don't even know if China would even support them if anything happened. That's like a huge fucking what if. Like, we have no idea.
They literally invaded Korea to keep us from taking Pyongyang.
They didn't invade Korea. They actually supported the North at the same time. They didn't invade anything.
Well, one man's supporting the North is another man's fighting against the South. So that's really a matter of perspective. They sent troops into the country and they used those troops to fight against our proxy troops, and then they did it to hold the DMZ.
Do you know how far they pushed into the south, right?
They got pretty far, didn't they? Before we kicked them back.
They got all the way. They got all the way to Busan. That's why they call it the Busan perimeter.
Yeah, and then we dabbed on them.
Well, it was the invasion at Incheon, and it was a lot more.
It's very. I know it's very complicated. The actual story of the Korean War, but eventually we did dab on them.
Well, we didn't actually. It was a bloody fucking stalemate. We didn't dab on anybody. Like, it was a slugfest. Like, when we pushed them, I believe, 40-something miles north of the current 38th parallel, and the United States was not winning, but the North wasn't winning either, because actually after the United States pushed into the war, China pulled their troops back, and the reason why China pulled their troops back is because the United States had a plan that was in the works, that there was a possibility that they were going to nuke Manchuria or nuke like the border between like China and the DPRK, like even after the retreat, to solidify China never entering the conflict again.
I'm glad nobody dropped nukes.
And cutting off North Korea. That was the original plan, and the war ended up going to an armistice because the amount of civilian deaths that were done on the DPRK were like massive, right? Like America dropped like more bombs than the entire than World War II in its entirety just on the DPRK. Anti-communist hit squads like brought out like Korean civilians that were taking food from North Korean soldiers or Chinese soldiers or just even like regular Koreans. And they were executed for just taking food. Like, it was a really brutal conflict where lots of people on both sides of the peninsula died.
Yeah, I don't
and it was
deny.
a brutal
Yeah, and now that suffering gets to be
was-
lived out every single day of the lives of every single citizen of North Korea.
It's not, suffering still happens in the South. Like, that war separated families. It changed the cultural landscape of both countries.
Do you think
can't
the
just talk
suffering
about
on the North and the South are comparable?
I'm not saying they're not comparable. I'm saying that you're missing that point.
Okay. Has the Mel person been to South Korea ever? She says she's Korean. So I've made a lot of assumptions about like Asian culture. And then when I like go to Asia, when I talk to people in Asia, some assumptions I made are like, seem to be very wrong. So one of the things that I'd assumed was that if you were South Korean, that like, if a North Korean existed in your country, it would be like the coolest thing in the world. You'd be like, oh my God, like you broke free, like you got out of North Korea, like that's awesome, like we're so happy to have you here, like that would be my assumption. It's like, oh, you broke out of that place, like that's cool. But from talking to South Koreans, what it sounds like is people hate North Koreans. That if you're in South Korea, like people discriminate against North Koreans, they can tell by the way they sound that they're like not from there, and that generally they just have like a shitty experience. That like South Koreans don't actually give a fuck about like North Koreans that make it into the country. Now, I don't know if that's just the people that I've talked to or how that works. I don't know if I have any Koreans in chat, but that was like something that I heard on over and over and over again, that South Koreans actually just don't give a fuck about North Koreans. They're just like, ew, the fuck, what are you? Like, you're gross. But maybe that's just younger people I've talked to, or I grew up in Korea and we were taught from a young age to hate North Koreans. The South Korean government treats them like their own citizens, but they face a lot of social stigma. The book on the girl who fled North Korea said that too. I'm Korean, it depends on the generation. South Koreans are less pro-reunification destiny. And then another thing that I'd heard, I've said this on stream a few times, is I always assumed, wait, where is Nick? Is he still logged in? Okay. Another thing that I'd assumed was that every single person in the whole Southeast Asian area all fucking would hate Japanese people because of what Mel said earlier, that Japan was a fascist country, they did horrible things to the rest of Asia, blah, blah, blah. But from when I, in Taiwan even, because I would assume these guys definitely fucking hate Japanese people. The thing that I heard from everybody is that everybody actually just hates South Koreans because they think that South Koreans are really stuck up. But this is only just like people that I've talked to. So I don't know, like it's hard for me to, because I don't live in these places. So I don't know broadly speaking, because I would assume that people from like Taiwan and China and shit would fucking hate Japanese people because of all the rape of Nanking and all the horrible shit we learned or whatever. But then most people would tell me like, oh, Japanese people or whatever. But like South Koreans, those motherfuckers are so stuck up. Like the way that they walk and everything is just, oh, they hate South Koreans. They're like, okay, I don't know. I'm genuinely, so I try to be really careful when I make when I make assumptions about like what certain groups of people think about each other, because it seems like it doesn't always, because it feels like some things would logically follow from history. Like, oh, historically, like I roughly know the history of you guys. Like you guys must hate each other. They're like, no, actually not at all. It's like, oh, okay, I don't know. My South Korean roommate was very anti-Japan. He believed conspiracy theories Japan was shipping food to South Korea tainted with radiation from Fukushima. Damn.
Families were separated. Like generational trauma happened. Like there's resentment by like the North Koreans don't necessarily hate the South Korean people. Their issue is with the government and the support of the United States.
Both groups feel that way. The South Korean people
The South Koreans don't necessarily hate the North Korean citizens. They have issues with the government in North Korea. It's sort of both of the same side.
Yeah,
both groups of people.
Yeah, so like this is what I would have assumed was true, but it didn't seem to be the case, just based on very, very, very few people that I talked to. Again, it could be a selection bias. It might just be way different. Like, I'm curious if Mel has like spent time in South Korea or knows a lot of South Koreans, or if she was just born there and moved to America when she was 4, and like I'm scared.
The government's here, but
don't necessarily hate each other, because for all intents and purposes, North and South Koreans are just Koreans. Like,
I never said they.
So if you
man, fuck, is that true? I feel like that is not at all the impression I get. I need more Korean friends. I feel like that is just absolutely not the impression that I get. I would believe that. Being a white person and not knowing any Koreans, I 100,000,000% believe what Mel is saying. That was my impression before. It's like, that like, yeah, Koreans, of course, like they see themselves as Koreans, blah, 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 blah. But like, I don't think that's the case. Now I'm really curious, because if Mel is lying about this, that's like a big, I mean, actually, wait. South Korean view on reunification. Is there like polling data on this? Or like, can we just look this up? That would actually be so much easier than just me saying shit like this and not actually. Yeah. What Jerry said, this is so dumb, LeMayo Destiny. It's like saying Irish and Northern Irish are just Irish people. It completely ignores any history. Yeah, I don't know. I legitimately don't know though. I'm not like doing that like, oh, I don't know, but it seems wrong. I legitimately don't know. Wait, oh my God, this is so long. Where's my polling data? The desired political makeup of a unified Korea. What kind of system do you think a unified Korea should have? About 50% want to retain South Korea's system. Some want to adopt a mixed South-North system. And then very low down here we've got 2 separate systems with no preference. And thinking about reunification, which of the reunification scenarios is the most desirable? So 39% want peaceful reunification. 34% want peaceful coexistence. Does that mean not reunifying and just living next to each other, or what does that mean? 14% say they're just not in favor of reunification. What is the difference between these two things? That's asked assuming there will be a reunification. Sure, yeah. The perceived likelihood that North Korea will disarm. 57% not confident at all. Okay, sorry. Let me finish this.
I never said they hated
But
each other.
But you implicitly imply that when you say that, like, these people are just their own separate, you know, what, I mean, it's,
the line is a travesty. All of Korea, there should be one Korea controlled by the South Korean government.
There should be one Korea controlled by whatever government the people want. I don't
considering
care.
South Korea's population is significantly larger than North, so I think any democratic
does not matter because they are the same people. You need to stop. You need to stop separating North and South Korea.
Wait, sorry.
Man, okay, we have to talk to Mel about this. If I do talk to Mel, this is gonna be something I'm very, very curious about. Fuck, and it sounds bad to say it, but this, like, seeing like all Koreans as just being Koreans, this sounds like a very white way of looking at things. That like, oh, well, there must be all Korean, like seeing all Irish people as Irish, or seeing all the Kurds as the same group of people, or seeing everybody that lives in the country of Iraq as an Iraqi citizen, or seeing everybody that lives in Afghanistan as being like part of the Taliban or part of like, I think that in the West, I think we tend to view some of these things like pretty, I don't know if I would say unilaterally, or very like unified in a unified way, but I think that there's a lot of different shit that goes on around the world that.
To be really clear, okay? I'm not a fascist. I don't believe in this mythological people, the people you keep referring to, okay? I don't know why you're trying to LARP like the great dictator shit here, okay? We're talking about states and state actions. If you're saying all of Korea should be made one nation and then all the people there should vote on their government system, that's great, that's cool. But I don't know why you keep talking about the people. You talked about it with China too, like, oh, their border disputes with India, those aren't geopolitical in nature. That's the people and their long-standing generational trauma. These aren't how countries work. And if geopolitics
that is how countries work. That is actually how countries work.
Countries do what's in their best interest. They're a conglomerate of a billion.
I feel like both of these guys are having a very
cannot
simplistic
take that out of
conversation,
the
like past
equation,
each other.
Vaush. When you minus the actual like things that like groups of ethnic groups go through, it's like Rwanda.
Wait,
Look
we're
at
not
borders.
minusing what the ethnic groups go for, but what they do is geopolitical.
Okay, so
Is
do you,
Black
okay,
Lives
do you
Matter
think,
political?
Okay,
Wait, is Black Lives Matter political?
that has
The movement.
nothing to do with this. That has nothing
Is the
to do with our
movement Black
conversation.
Lives Matter
That's the worst
political?
fucking pivot, Vaush. You know that is a terrible fucking pivot. Shut
Is
the
it?
fuck
Wait,
up
well,
with
it's
that
not a pivot. It's directly explanatory.
fucking pivot.
Is
No,
it
it's not.
a political
No, it's
movement?
not.
Chat,
It's
I'm asking
disingenuous
you.
as fuck. It is
Chat?
disingenuous as fuck. You
Okay,
know that.
so wait, you're saying it's
Nothing to
disingenuous
do
because you
with
don't
fuck.
understand what's happening. So
No,
Black
I
Lives
do. It
Matter
has
is
nothing to
political.
do with this.
Is
It has
Black Lives
nothing
Matter a
to
product
do
of
with it.
generational trauma on the part of Black Americans? Chat, I want to see those yeses rolling in. Can something be
100%.
product of generational trauma and political? Is it possible?
100%. It's both. Yes.
Okay,
but most
but
of
it's
it
still
does
political.
come from trauma. Hell yeah, it does.
But it's
like
still
black people
political.
get shot by fucking cops. It's not, but the thing is you are being so reductive with this.
No, no. That geopolitics is a very catch-all term. That's the point.
Not though. It's not.
You said it was broad.
Hello.
Yeah,
What's up?
this is. Do we have to listen to the end of this?
It's like 15 more minutes, right?
Can you 2x it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Earlier, is it broad or is it not?
It's broad, but you can't just always say geopolitics for everything. You're basically just obfuscating and reducing my point by just
No,
saying,
the point I'm trying to make- the point that's interesting to me is that your anti-imperialism.
You do not give a fuck about nuance because you just want to say, oh, well, now it's just geopolitics.
The problem is that your anti-imperialism, unless it comes to what China is doing, and then all of a sudden it's the magical influence of like cultural. You would never do this. If somebody said, "Hey, America's involvement in Iraq was a geopolitical move," you would never quote tweet that and say, "Actually, no, it was a product of America's trauma after 9/11."
You have no idea what the fuck I would say about
No,
that.
I know you would say
just-
something stupid. I have enough information to say that.
You need to
with
stop
great
fucking assuming things with people like you're the all-knowing fucking human being because you're not. This is why people don't like to talk to you. This is why people in real activist circles don't take you seriously.
My
Because
career
you're
is suffering
constantly
tremendously for it, I
fucking
know.
Real fucking leftists and real organizers
Real
do not
leftists.
like you.
No, you're
Real
not a
organizers
leftist.
do
You
not
are a
like
leftist.
Vaush.
Nothing
Real
about this
organizers
political
make
program
all
has
the
anything to
time.
do with the
They really
emancipation of working
think
class.
you do not know what you're talking about because you are reductive with your arguments. People just want
Also,
you
I read all
to be
theory.
reductive. People just don't like when you're reductive to the other experiences of these
Saying
things that
that
happen.
China maintains control over North Korea because it wants a buffer state and that's a part of a geopolitical process is not being reductive. It's just me being correct and you being mad.
Buffer state. Can you explain? Like, do you know anything about this part? Like,
I
what
evidently know
is-
significantly more than you do.
Well, you're not explaining it very well. So
I already
what
did.
is
It's a buffer state that China maintains because they don't want to share a border with American military bases.
What is
I explained it. That's the most right thing anyone's ever said.
You know, your definition of client state.
I already answered it. Wait, are you going to do the Mike from PA thing? What's a TIF? What's a TIF? Sewer socialism. Come on.
I don't care about Mike from PA. Do you know the definition of client state?
Do you know the definition of a buffer state?
The definition of client state.
Wait, can you explain to me how it's relevant to the conversation and then I'll maybe entertain you with an answer.
Because a client state and a buffer state are very similar things, but they act in different purposes. So can you tell me what the definition of a client state
Very
is?
ignorant. Can you elucidate the difference? You're saying North Korea is a client state of China.
Okay, I'm gonna guess based on the words. Is a client state a country that you see yourself as having shared interests with and you help each other out and you kind of have an alliance because of those similar interests? Whereas a buffer state is a country that you don't give a fuck about and you just do the bare minimum to make sure that that country like can last and not collapse to keep a buffer between you and another country? That's gonna be my guess on the difference, but we'll see. Well, hopefully one of them will wheel it out.
Yes, I would say it's more of a client state on buffer state. A buffer state implies that.
What are you Googling?
What?
I heard keyboard strokes and I haven't heard them in a 2-hour convo. Are you Googling client state definition?
I mean, I want to have it up so when you read it, I can make sure you have the same definition. What's wrong with that?
Why would
Can you give me the
why would you Google before saying what it is? You can't. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna look up client state. Wait, I know the answer to this, but I know the answer to this, but
I want us to read this at the same time. I think it would be fun. Why are you getting so mad that I Googled something?
because you
why are you losing your
Googled
shit
as
over
you
it?
were about to say. Okay. Sorry, it was just funny. It's just funny, and I'm learning what a TIF is. Okay, hit me
Is
up.
this a dunk? Is this really funny because I just typed in Google?
A client state is a state that is economically, politically, or militarily subordinate to another more powerful state. Okay.
Oh man, that's the same definition I got. All right.
Well, yeah, because
cool.
you Googled it. Yeah.
Do we agree on this definition, Vaush?
Yeah. Well, I didn't Google it. I just remembered it.
Do we agree on it though? Do we agree on this definition?
We also heard Vaush Googling a definition earlier, to be fair as well, but
What do you mean agree on? Wait, do you want to invent a new definition?
No, I mean, do we agree
So
on
wait,
the definition?
here's a
that we
buffer
Googled?
state. Wait, anyone, does this sound familiar? A buffer state is a country lying between two rival or potentially hostile great powers. Now, what can that apply to North Korea? Is there any problem at all between South Korea and China that they want to physically buffer?
Is client state and buffer state the same definition?
Do you think both of them can apply to the same country?
It depends on the situation. What is a client state?
Well,
Are
if
they
the
economically tied
situation
together?
is that a client is A, wait, hold on. If a country is A, subservient to another, and B, also lying between two rival countries, it might
Is
be a
North Korea
client and a
subservient to
buffer
China?
state.
Can you explain to me how North Korea is subservient to China? Can you tell me how
You
they're
were the
being
one who brought up
subservient?
client state.
Well, I'm just asking you. How do you? If
Wait,
we
so
agree on
you
the-
brought up a
if we agree on
term. Wait, hold on. You brought up a
if we agree
term.
on the working-
You
if we agree on
made
the
a
working
claim.
definition- No. If we agree on the working definition, then you can agree. You can say, hey, you can define client state.
Mel, you brought it up. You made the claim. You argued North Korea is a client state, and now you're asking me to prove it. What are you doing?
I'm not proving anything. I'm saying,
I know you're not. Why would you make a claim and then demand?
No, we're going through the
I
definition.
think
and I'm
North Korea is
saying
more of a client
that-
state. Can you explain to me how that's the case? What are you talking about?
This whole
So,
conversation has
Google
been
at the
so
same-
much
both Google
posturing.
clients
Oh my
and
You made a
god.
claim that was, by the way,
Holy
had nothing to do with this.
shit.
Client state and buffer state are not mutually exclusive. My characterization of North Korea being a buffer state is objectively correct. It might serve that definition better than any country on Earth right now.
How do you know that you're objectively correct, Vaush?
I'll leave that one
Do you
to
have
the
a-
historians.
source?
Do you have any
a source
other
between the
subjects that you want to run over?
Do you have a source about the relationship between China and North Korea?
Let's do you want to maybe embarrass yourself on the geopolitical interests of any other countries in Southeast Asia? Or anything
I don't
else
think you
want?
don't. I mean, it's the same thing with Luna Oil. Like, you don't know anything about Vietnam either. We talk
Luna
about
Oi's
Vietnam.
video on me was embarrassing. She spent 2 minutes misinterpreting an argument that she had vaguely seen on Twitter, and 18 of them talking about
So
personal
again, when people that are from those parts of the world try to talk about the
Nice
cause-
liberal
you know,
identity politics. When
not
women of
liberal.
color
That's not
speak out, you
liberal.
should listen, Vaush. Really? Damn, you should be running
That's
your own
not liberal.
racial
How
sensitivity
is that-
meetings
how is
at
that liberal?
businesses.
How is that liberal?
Do you know what liberal idpol is?
Yes, I do.
You're
But
like,
how is that
what's
liberal?
D'Angelo? What's the name of that lady? You're like, you should be running those white fragility classes, you know? When you hear a voice of a woman of color, you should speak out. Nah, I prefer to let the arguments do the talking, personally.
I don't necessarily think that you just need to listen to everything. Like, people of
Why
color
don't I
say
just
take,
assess
like,
the
face
arguments?
value
Why
and
do I have
just
to make it a
accept
race
it. That's not what it's not a race thing. It's that when
You just
people are
brought
actually
up-
from that part of the world and they have experience or they understand the intricacies of like their own people and their own groups that are part
Luna
part
Oil
of
was
the world,
wrong.
it's
She
helpful
had
to-
she talked in her video
How-
and said incorrect statements about Vietnam. I googled, like she made strong claims about the interests of their people, and it turns out she was
literally
wrong.
lives there. She
Vietnam-
lives there, and you told her she was wrong, and
Wait,
she
do
lives
you
there?
think you should take anecdotes from one YouTuber over Pew Research data to form opinions on a country?
So
Did I just hear
you're
that
more-
correctly?
You're more willing to take an American
Pew
or a Western
Research
centric
data.
study. No. You're more willing to take a Western anecdotal study over someone who actually
Anecdotal
lives in
study?
Vietnam.
Bro,
That just
Pew
seems
Research
ridiculous.
is totally Western. You should just listen to this YouTuber. Yeah, no shit, because I'm not an anti-intellectual.
Mel's
So you think
arguments
it's
here are
anti-intellectual
garbage.
to not listen to someone that's
To
from
ignore
the country and
data
just agree
because
with
one person
research?
said otherwise. Hey, wait, can I ask you something?
Sure, go
So
ahead.
Luna Oil said that Vietnamese people don't like the market reforms that their country has been undergoing since the 1990s. But the data says that 94% of the Vietnamese people support market reforms and want more of them.
Because
That's a
they
greater
have to.
majority
They
than
have no choice.
that's
They
a
have no
hold,
choice.
hold on. That's
They
a great
have no
hold on.
choice.
That's a greater majority than any other country that was listed on that study by an exponential factor. So
They have no choice.
So wait, so you're saying
you
Luna
understand-
Oil was wrong? They do want it, but they have no choice but to want it?
Well, they don't. They have no choice because the only way for them to compete in the market is to open that.
How many rounds of the Doi Moi reform ship was there? Wasn't there like 4 or 5 rounds? I was under the impression that those were pretty popular in Vietnam. He's saying 94%. Like,
But it doesn't
So
necessarily
they
mean that
want
people
it. So
that.
they want those reforms so they can compete in the market.
They're being held at the standard of the Western market, so they have to do it to compete, or else they'll starve.
Interesting.
They
Do you
have
hold
no-
this criticism for the reforms that have been pushed in Africa due to the Belt Road Initiative?
They're not the same situation. They're 100% different.
So
You
the
can't compare
Vietnamese
them.
people democratically deciding to introduce market reforms is actually worse than China imposing economic initiatives on African
They're not
countries.
even remotely the same argument.
Well, you're
They're
bad
not
with
even remotely
comparisons, so I know.
point.
You are all over the place. So to answer your question broadly, no, I don't listen. No, I don't take single anecdotes over data.
I've been trying to understand like where your framing is for where you're getting your arguments, and every time I press you and ask you a question to make sure I get like you understand the nuance, you just repeat yourself.
Your
or you
nuance
just, like,
was ignore data because it's from the West.
I'm not saying that Western data is bad. I don't believe that all Western data is bad. That's just
You
ignorant. I don't
just
believe
said,
that.
would you really take Western data over the anecdote of one individual?
No, I didn't say that. I meant like.
You wait, chat. Did she not say
Mel
that?
kind of said that.
You know
yeah.
this is being recorded, right? My memory's
Yes,
not that
Vaush,
bad.
Of course they do, but you're misinterpreting everything
No,
that
you
I'm
did-
saying.
did you
You're taking
misspeak?
everything literal, and you're just going through
Everything
every
little.
single.
You, when I said
and
something
find
wrong,
every
you
single
took it
thing that-
literally. You should have interpreted it allegorically, like a dance.
You're interpreting everything I'm saying. Literally, you're not giving any sort of.
You
implication
complained
for
that I
me to
interpreted what you said
say.
literally. You're like beyond parody.
Beyond parody. Okay, so Fuentes, Grover, Red
Oh,
Fash,
well,
Tankie,
when
Genocide,
Fuentes doesn't like data, he calls it Jewish, and you call it Western.
Beyond parody. What else are you going to say to me, Vaush? How condescending can you possibly be this entire?
I don't know what you are in this case digging your own grave right now. So I'm just
I don't think I'm
watching.
gonna lose anything about this. I think I'm going to lose nothing after this conversation.
No, because you
Neither-
don't have anything.
I
You're
don't
not like
have
some
what?
giant public figure, and the people you associate with are as stupid and reprehensible as you.
don't think
So
I'm
no,
a
you're not
public
going to lose anything, okay? And I'm probably not going to gain much either, because anybody worth talking to and having listened to my content already knows you're a worthless piece of shit. And the kinds of people who don't like me are the kinds of people who would already agree with me on that.
Okay. I love listening to people that sit in a chair and just yell
Chair
boring
sit.
politics, calling other people piece of shit. Like, what have you done? Have you
Well, I
organized?
substantiated the argument is what I did.
Have you organized, Vaush?
Yeah, I'm organizing these nuts.
All right.
I like this is by the way, this is the maximum coat posting from everyone who gets blown the fuck out of my stream. You're just a fat white boy. You have you even done a revolution? Oh, have you
I
done a
didn't ask you-
revolution, Mel?
I-
Mel, how many revolutions have you led? How many notches have you scraped into the hilt of your pistol?
I wasn't comparing. I was just asking you if you've organized. I'm just curious.
This is obviously, you're asking this to attack him on it, right? Like, of course, I don't know why she's pretending otherwise.
Organize hundreds of thousands of people every day. What do you want from me?
I'm just asking. Like, I'm not trying to dunk or feel better or worse or trying to make
Just
myself
curious,
look like
just
I'm-
bringing it up with no implications whatsoever. Just it had nothing to do with what we were talking about. I was just asking, So anyway, to answer your question, no, random anecdotes are not better than studies. If I believe that, then I would have to believe everything Candace Owens says about Black America. I'm not Black, so I guess I'll just take her word for it. You could run that down. It's not a good way of forming ideas.
That's not how being intersectional about race works.
You don't know anything about intersectionality.
Okay, so a trans person of color has no absolute idea of how intersectionality works, or the.
Wait, you just did the liberal lip again. I'm a trans
liberal.
woman of color. Of course, I understand this academic concept.
No, I didn't say
you
that I
are so
understood
many
it.
things. You're a Nazi.
Mel
you're
is
liberal, you're
pulling this a
everywhere.
lot,
You're
like, oh,
incredible.
well, I'm this, so blah, blah, which is really dumb too.
I don't know how anyone could live with as much cognitive dissonance as you seem to exhibit in a single conversation. You are unfathomable. Like, I'm not kidding. This is like Tim Pool stuff. I've talked to a lot of people. I've probably talked to more people politically than anyone online, except for maybe Destiny, like in terms of the debate shit. You are really up there in terms of how incoherent your beliefs are. My personal belief, you don't actually have beliefs. You just say things.
I just say things.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I do think that. It would be too generous to you to suggest that you've thought enough about your ideas to even be inconsistent. You just say things.
Man. I just say things.
It would be like interpreting the random flailing of a toddler as a poorly implemented exercise routine.
Oh, so I just run around and flail as a toddler because I don't have any sort of brain.
Why do you keep repeating my dunks? You're like doubling how hard you're being owned. Why?
No, I'm not actually. If this is being owned, this is like fucking pathetic.
Well, I know, because you live in like
I haven't been in real life. You think this is dumb? Like you're
perspective on this is
absolutely like
completely
fucking
gone.
a sad fucking. This is like it's terribly pathetic.
Okay.
Like,
So
again, I'm
do we
just
have any
incredibly
final memes that we want to run through? As far as I can tell, you've walked back on everything empirical. I mean, once you start saying stuff like you interpreted my statement literally, I don't know where to go from there.
I kept trying to understand where you were coming from, and then you just parrot a definition that you just always say, but it's so vague that it's hard to work with. Like the fact, like it's not that I didn't understand what you were trying to say; it's that it was just very vague, and so I wanted to kind of make sure that I understood all the framing of your argument and all the words that you were using, and make sure that I had the same definition as you. And for some reason, me just asking those questions and verification of what you believed in it makes me stupid, which is pretty ridiculous, actually.
Hold on, wait, I just got a DM in Discord from a Black trans autistic woman in a wheelchair. They're saying that they've lived in 63 countries over the course of their life and that you're wrong about all of them. Are you are you in a wheelchair, or is that a point of privilege that you have over this individual?
That's incredibly fucked up to say.
What, are you disagreeing with them?
I'm not going to entertain that. That's just incredibly fucked up for you.
Yeah,
like,
it's real fun when you can try to use it to win arguments over white boys, but then when somebody makes fun of you for it, it becomes fucked up. Yeah, take your crybaby civility politics bullshit onto the next stream that'll have you on. There'll probably be a dozen people who want to talk to you about how you owned me after this convo.
Not really. I mean, I wanted to just talk to you. I wasn't really hoping that. I didn't really have a lot of high or low expectations. I was kind of going into it.
I didn't know you were an ableist too.
I'm not really ableist, but that's kind of you because you've been pretty,
Speaking over the lived experience of a wheelchair-bound person, no, I don't know.
I don't know. That's just I didn't expect you to
Yeah,
say
was
that.
I wrong? Did I not hear Mel be ableist there? I'm pretty sure that I heard that.
Well, I've never been ableist this entire conversation.
I appreciate you coming on.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
Seriously, he went too fast on me. He talked too fast.
Oh,
In
yeah.
the microphone, he talked too fast.
Yes, Steven does that.
That's not true at all. Why would she even say that? Why is she
Please.
accusing me of debate tactics?
Watch what you're saying, mister.